Hey, what's up, everybody? It is I, DH Thorne, coming at you live with a short live stream tonight. I haven't really had my head in the game lately for doing live streams. I have to apologize. I've kind of felt a little burnt out a little bit on doing social media stuff and making YouTube videos and things like that. There's just too much going on, both in my life and, of course, in the world. Um, and I'm sure you guys get that. I'm sure a lot of you guys are feeling it. Wouldn't be surprised, at least if you're paying attention to things. Um, there's just a lot on my mind lately. In the good spectrum, we just got a new dog, and he's about 3 months old. He's a little Boston Terrier. He's sleeping right now. I said pick him up. But my other dog just died about 2 weeks ago. So we've had a lot of death and a lot of loss in my family this year. A lot of it was expected. You know, my mom was aged; she was nearing her time. We all knew that, and my dog too. She was 16 years old. So every vet, said we did well with her, and it was her time. She had an enlarged heart. She had some problems. So that's just how it is. Let me adjust this a little bit. I feel like I'm a little zoomed in here. Let me maybe move this around just a little bit. Maybe can I shrink it? I'll try shrinking it. Oops, no, I don't know what I just moved. Chat box. There we go. No, hopefully that'll work. All right, that's good enough. So yeah, so I've just been kind of preoccupied. In fact, I've just kind of felt a little burnt out in general, primarily because I guess, maybe I'm getting a little bit resentful and a little bit aggravated. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. Like, it's necessary to be honest like this. Some of you guys might not like what I'm going to say. It doesn't really apply to any of you, I'm sure. Um, don't think I'm aiming this necessarily at anybody who's a regular viewer or friend or whatever you consider yourself of me or this channel or what I do. But I've become kind of burnt out and a little bit resentful of the community that I for the last 5, 6, I don't know, whatever it's been since 2018. The community that I entered as an occultist, as a trying to bring to, we'll say, the left-hand path circuit of things, the left-hand path communities online, which doesn't really mean much, if I'm going to be honest. It doesn't really amount to a hill of beans, to be honest with you. The so-called left-hand path community on the internet is mostly just LARPers and edgelords and, metalheads and shit that um, they like the aesthetic of the dark, or they are unfortunately savage dogs. They're rabid dogs, and that's on them. But I've kind of just been sort of fed up because, like, when I make posts, especially on Facebook, I'm going to say Facebook is um, probably the one that annoys me the most. You'd think it would be like Twitter or something, but Twitter I kind of expect. Twitter is just kind of like a wild, it's like a Wild West pithy place. Everybody, you're limited to a short number of characters and shit like that. So people tend to just be assholes on Twitter. And I don't really engage on Twitter very much. If I was going to, with my DH Thorne account, I'd probably switch away from pretty much all politics except for a little bit on there, simply because it's just so, um, it's just wild. YouTube, of course, is censorious, and it sucks to use these days. If you want to talk about anything more important than just cat pictures or something. But like I said, in general, um, it's like I make posts on Facebook, and everybody just sort of wants to chime in with nonsensical responses. A lot of those responses are just ignorant, stupid. And I guess I'm getting resentful, you know, when I scroll through my feed, my news feed, which I try not to do. In fact, I had the app on my phone. I just took it off. I just took my Facebook app off my phone because I made the mistake of opening it not to just make a post, which is usually what I do. I actually scrolled the fucking feed a little bit. I almost never do that because I can't stand most of what people post. It's usually like really just superficial bullshit. Mostly it's stuff that's just, it sets off, I guess, I don't know if it would be cognitive dissonance in the usual sense. It's like idiocracy. It's like I see stuff in that feed, and it just makes me just nauseous, like the dumb shit that I see. It's just people just, I can't even give you examples because to me it's like there's no one example that really makes the point. You know, I have around 3,000 followers on my personal page, which I probably should never have allowed to get that big. My personal page was never meant to be my flagship on Facebook. But you know, it did, you know, like my public page, like the actual page. So on Facebook, you have a profile and you have a page, right? Your profile is your personal profile. And that's where you're limited to only 5,000 followers, or not followers, but 5,000 friends. And the pages is what's supposed to be like your really public front, I guess. At least that's how I've always thought of it. And I let a lot of randos into my personal profile. And over the years, I've sort of had a, like, I don't really care about you attitude, and I block people. You know, so like when someone just comes in and acts like a troll, I'd mock them and block them. But things have become so contentious and shitty lately that everybody is just ridiculously stupid and, you know, unnecessarily adversarial. And it's like everybody's showing their ass right now. Everybody's just showing their ass or their asshole. That's like all they're doing. Like everybody is just spewing these just ridiculous, unintelligent hot takes. And it just got to me. It just got to me lately. It's just, I don't care anymore. Like, it used to be fun and profitable to really work on my social media. It was like a game, right? The world kind of made sense, even though I knew it was fucked up, because I know way more than most of you. I know way more than pretty much anybody who follows me on Facebook about a lot of things. I know how arrogant that sounds. I do. And I don't care. I put in the work. I've spent years, lifetimes, developing an understanding of several different areas. And I'm expert in them. I'm not formally educated in them, but I am expert in them. And it's just obnoxious when you try to, I've been trying to use Facebook almost like a blog post website, which was, it's a mistake on my part. I should have just stuck to using like Blogger or something like that, WordPress or something. That's on me. But I will post something and there will be 4 interactions with it. So I'll spend like an hour crafting a thoughtful post. It could be spiritual. It could be political. It could be just a joke, you know, but it's something that I think of as being thoughtful and productive and intelligent. And I'll get, because it runs afoul of the algorithm, because I've had opinions that I've made public on social media that offend, you know, the people in power of everything, or at least until recently, by the way. They're no longer running things. I can tell you that with absolute confidence. In addition to the algorithmic censorship on the entire spectrum of social media, since I became, I'm going to say political, I haven't gotten political. People don't understand what politics is. politics is the front page hysteria. Politics is, you know, Tim Walz is not an actual veteran of deployment. He was just in the military. Trump has a terrible policy on this and that. That's politics. I do not really ever talk about politics. That is not what I'm interested in. I do not care because I know what psyops are. And I know that politics is just pablum. It's just bread and circus for people into civics. That's all it is. It's for normal people who don't have discernment, who cannot see or read between the lines. I'm very informed about politics, but I don't talk about politics. You never will hear me say on this issue, on that issue, you know, such and so candidate, such and so politician. Don't fucking care. But what I will talk about are issues, genuine issues, the ones that are not. I'll make fun of the superficial ones. Like I made a few joke posts about the Olympics, and I was very opinionated about some people's attitude about Christianity with that, with, you know, everyone, for example, everyone got uptight about that opening ceremony, both Christians and non-Christians. And I actually understand what was actually going on there. There was an intention to offend conservative Christians. That wasn't an accident. It was absolutely intentional. But by the same token, they masked it, they masqueraded it as a Native European pagan representation, a modernized, woke representation of pagan myth. Now, I know people who that is their life's blood, by the way, and they didn't like it either. They hated the, I'm not going to say the word because I don't believe in that, but there are times I get it. I get why people want to be bigoted about it. I really do. People are sick of having this stuff rubbed in their face. They just are. It's not like I've said to my wife today, and you guys know who my friends are. I don't care what you're into. I'm just tired of having this stuff crammed down my throat, right? And people will say, well, if you're okay with it, why does it feel like you're having it crammed in your throat? For the same reason that I don't like seeing, like I don't watch Game of Thrones, because if I want to watch porn, I'll watch porn. And I don't really like that kind of stuff. To me, it's just, it's base. Not based, it's debased. It's just boring. It's just how just gross can you be? So I don't like having things necessarily slammed into my face. And not for nothing, when I grew up, most stuff you were shown, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, you had Chuck Norris, you had, you know, hell, you had Vin Diesel even. You had tough guys and you had beautiful women and you would have whatever else in the mix, but it wasn't as inclusive. Okay, so you want to have more inclusion and stuff. That's never bothered me, by the way. That never bothered me. But I can always tell the difference between when you're just putting stuff in it to be inclusive or it makes sense in the story versus when you have an agenda and a message and a narrative and a thing you're trying to push on everybody. Okay, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was Conan, there wasn't an agenda there. It wasn't, hey, let's normalize muscle people, right? It was just, hey, this is what people like. I was just playing Baldur's Gate 3 a lot lately. It's a fantastic game. I don't want to quibble and nitpick it because I don't fault it for this. But to give you an example, there's no examples of classical beauty. There's no like barbarian male, right? There's no strongman fighter, right? But there are lots of women warriors in this, and just hear me out. I know what I sound like. Just listen to me. What I'm trying to tell you is the scales aren't in balance anymore. Everything's androgynous. And you'll say, well, Thorne, that's a spiritual thing. Fine, you don't understand the principle, but fine, you can make that argument. What I'm saying is that it's obviously they've destroyed classical values completely. They haven't taken what is right, which is tolerance and treating people with humane dignity, especially if they're different from the average or the norm. If someone has a sexual tendency or a preference, or they were born in the wrong biology or something like that, you're not going to get any hatred from me whatsoever. I want you to be included. I want you to have a place in society, but I don't want to lose what also was good. Do you understand? You don't have to make every male a fragile, thin, scrawny, effeminate, androgynous weakling. You don't have to make every woman a butch. You follow me? Now, maybe it's just because I'm a big dude. Sure. Maybe that's all it is. I want some representation. But what I'm trying to say to you is you can have both. We can have all of the above. You don't have to make it so that it's just this millennial squishiness. Yeah, I said it. Because that's where it really started. Because they started polluting the water supply or whatever. They started putting stuff in the water that, or what, you know, I'm saying the water. They're turning the frogs again, making it funny. Just relax. Okay, I do that. That's part of how I get through to you. They started fucking with biology. And they did it with plastics and things like that. Low testosterone's a real problem, guys. It's not made up. There's charts showing what's been happening. And it's obviously environmental. And it's environmental because they know it's they're intentionally putting this shit in our environment. They do. I am going to tell you right now, when we're on the other side of whatever's going to happen, sooner or later, it's going to come out, heads are going to roll, and a lot of people are going to feel really either stupid or violated. Because there's a lot of people out there right now who are suffering from gender dysphoria or whatever, gender issues. They're suffering from biological issues. They're suffering from low testosterone. They're suffering from real problems that they wouldn't have if not for this. I've said to friends, and some of them didn't care or get it. Some of them actually got offended by it. But I asked them, if it was proven to you that the entire reason why you are your whichever shade of the rainbow you are is because of something they put in the water, meaning the meme. I'm not saying it was just that, obviously. If you found out that that was why you are trans or whatever, your taint is this big instead of nice and long like someone like me, look it up. Taint length matters. If you found out that the reason you're like that is because they polluted the fucking planet with hormone disruptors, made you feel unnatural for a little while because society still frowns on it a little bit. Yeah, we're all inclusive now, but you know that we got to a point, actually, this is very important, especially if you're on the other side of this a little bit and you're listening to me. Is Thorne a bigot? I am absolutely not a fucking bigot. I'm a realist. I'm a little bit, cynical. I don't have a problem with you. I don't think you're bad. I don't think you shouldn't exist. I think you should exist. I think biologically, we evolved to include all of that. I don't think it's a fluke. I think it's part of how we're supposed to be. And some people will say, well, that doesn't make any sense, because you can make arguments. I'm sure that there's certain things that aren't healthy. I'm sure certain things are genuinely pathological disorders. Sure. What I'm saying, though, is being a homosexual, being trans, being any of those things is perfectly natural and part of the human experience. To a point. To a point. They existed throughout history before they were doing shit to the water, and most cultures figured out ways to either tolerate, integrate, or accept. So that's what I'm fine with that. That's never been, I've never said you shouldn't have that, you shouldn't have representation. That's never been, guys, it's never been my issue. I hope I've made that really strongly clear. That's never been a big deal to me. I just don't want it. I don't want to be pandered. I don't want pandering. I don't want messaging. I don't want agendas being pushed. I'm not saying that everybody who's in that collective is part of an agenda. I'm not saying that. That's a meme. It's a joke. No one thinks that you with your rainbow flag are knowingly participating in an agenda to subvert anything. At least I don't. I'm sure there's a lot of people do. I should correct that, you know. All I'm saying is we had it better. We had it right. I was with the whole movement right up to and a little bit past gay marriage. But when they started saying bake the cake or else, and I started going, that's not freedom, guys. You're now imposing something on people. You're trying to force other people to like you. That's not freedom. That's not tolerance. That's actually intolerance. It's just an inversion of intolerance. It is intolerance. You're not tolerating someone else's right to refuse you. That isn't social justice. That's subversion. That is an attempt to subvert and destroy the societal foundation. That's what it was. That's what it's always been. And like anything, these people use a real problem and champion a real, genuine cause that deserves championing, which is humanizing people like this because they deserve to live their best life just like anybody else. 100%. But that doesn't mean they get special treatment. That doesn't mean that everybody has to bend over for it and love it. All that is required is that everybody agree not to dehumanize, not to abuse, not to attack, not to hurt, to tolerate, to live in civil coexistence with one another. That's all that anybody should ever ask for. Any person who is sincerely trying to get equality for people who are different, the only ethical, rational, and philosophically sound position to have is not to require love, acceptance, and all of that. It is tolerance and treating people with humanity. Even if you don't like them, even if you don't think they're human, you have to treat them that way. That is the social contract of any civilization that's worth a damn, in my opinion. Any civilization that wants to impose morality or impose anything else on people is immoral, unjust, unethical. Now, someone could argue, well, freedom's a kind of morality. Fine. You can make whatever semantical point you want. Then you can call me a hypocrite. Maybe I'm just using the wrong choice of words, but my point is, we know the difference between imposing ideology on people and setting them free. So, like, I used to love the old libertarian line. Yes, I am plotting to take over the world, become king of the world so I can set you guys free and take my crown off and melt it and destroy the whole system. Yes, that is my goal. To become a tyrant so I can free you and then destroy the office of tyrant forever. That's what I would do if I had all the power in the universe for a day. I'm not kidding. It's such a priority of mine that that's what I would love to see in this world. And I don't mean lawless anarchy. I don't mean complete lawless anarchy. I mean freedom to be good. Because if you do not have the freedom to be evil, if you do not have the freedom to dehumanize, then you're not free to love or to be tolerant. You are required. That is not freedom. This is why I've never said that even people that I don't like these Antifa morons, that they should be, just by virtue of existing, should be shut down, shut up, censored, whatever. It's only the violence. When you get violent, when you break the social contract, when you're organized in a way to be a violent mob and do this kind of shit, then yeah, I got a problem with you. If all you're doing, and I know there's different kinds of those people, some of those people, they literally will just go to demonstrations and make sure nobody gets hurt. I know they exist. I haven't seen any of them, because usually when someone is proud enough to wear that tag in their bio, they usually send me death threats because they identify me as a maggot or a whatever their fucking retarded mentality says I am. Even though there was a time I would have drew and shed blood to make sure that they, unless of course they were treating me like shit, to make sure that they would have had the opportunity to have a voice and exist. There is a limit. If you're a rabid dog and you're infringing on people's rights, you're hurting people, then you've lost that benefit. You become a target. People like me will curse the living shit out of you. At least I used to. I kind of got bored with curses, I haven't done a lot of magic to affect things in a long time. Probably about a year and a half was the last time I did any major working. I've done minor stuff, but nothing like, a spell or a ritual. More like meditations and temporal shifting, stuff like that. It's a different mentality. It's more about leaning into choices that will get you where you want to go. But yeah, I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 and I'm just bombarded by soft men, masculine women. All right, it's not that bad, actually. They did a pretty good job. But I see this everywhere. And I think that's what I'm saying, is it's not any one example. It's in everything. There hasn't been many examples of classical Conan and Red Sonja. I'm just going to say it. Stuff like that. That stuff is gone. And I'm not saying it all has to be like that, but can we get back to strong male leads, strong female leads? You can have strong homosexuals. I don't care. But can we get back to celebrating all of the potential of the human condition? Can we get back to celebrating what is good and strong and stuff that we should all be striving for, no matter what your personal spectrum is? There's an ideal. What do you think an archetype is? If you're into spirituality, you know what I'm saying. You know that there are ideals that all of us sort of lean into, or really are expressions of. Put in the comments, what archetype? Give me a famous god, goddess, doesn't matter. By the way, goddesses can be can manifest as men. Absolutely. Venus is a common example where you can have a masculine, Lucifer is often, equated. Of course, he'd be usually portrayed as an androgynous character, but not necessarily, right? Lucifer can show up as a, So which archetype, which divine archetype or Jungian archetype, which one do you think I'm an expression of primarily? I won't even tell you which ones I think I am. You tell me, based upon what I say, which deity or deities, it could be more than one, which ones, which archetypes, which astrological signs, which houses do you think fit me best? Doesn't mean I'll agree with you. I have ones that I personally feel like I am aiming at. Like there's ones I ascribe to be like, but that might not be how I am, right? Your patron is not necessarily who you are. That's who you're learning from. That's your primary teacher or your primary guide if you're using the demonolatry or whatever path. And then do the same thing for yourself. Which archetype are you mostly inspired by? So we as a society, because we were indoctrinated for a long time by these assholes to lower our standards, to be more and more accepting of things that are maybe not good. I don't mean humanizing people who deserve it. I'm talking about tolerating pedophilia, tolerating perverts. There is a difference between someone who's trans and a fucking pervert. I don't consider a trans person a pervert. I know quite a few trans people. I hug the daylights out of them when I see them. I shake their hands, whatever's fitting, whatever they like, use whatever pronoun they fucking want because I don't care. It's just polite. If you tell me to call you Frank and your real name is Bob, I'll still call you Frank. I don't care. I'm not going to make a stink about it. I'm not one of those people. I never will be. It's not even about going along to get along. It's just respecting another person's lived experience. That's normal. It's not normal to be like, well, you're not a woman. Right? Except biologically speaking, we can often make that argument. But from a social perspective, someone says, call me Miss Such and So, and they're a guy, I don't care. I'm perfectly fine doing that. It doesn't faze me. But if you make it an excuse to fight me about it, if you're like, oh, you better or else, then I'm going to say, look, that's a bad attitude. You don't even know me. Don't force this stuff on anybody. Correct, Connor. A man wearing little girl's clothing in public, that's, people say don't kink shame, don't fetish shame. Excuse me. For the same reason that I wear deodorant and try to speak pleasantly in public, don't fucking have your balls swinging around in public acting out your fantasies on my bus. I don't need to see you fucking whacking off. There's pictures and videos of these people, masturbating on buses and shit. That's a pervert. Or if you've got dangerous mental illness, I'm not going to normalize that. But I'm also not judging you for existing necessarily. In fact, I generally don't like to judge. I acknowledge. There is a difference between acknowledgement and judgment. I can acknowledge that a person is a piece of shit. That sounds like judgment, but it's not. Judgment is when you take something that maybe you don't like about somebody and you judge the whole person based on that. That's judgment. Or like, let's say you make a mistake, right? I'm walking through my house, I knock something over, I'm like, oh, you clumsy fool. All right, when I said clumsy, that's an acknowledgement. Fool, that's a judgment. You clumsy person. You were clumsy in that moment. That's an acknowledgement. When you say, oh, you are a bad person because you're clumsy, that's a judgment. So I don't like to judge people based on superficial things. I don't like judging at all. But if you can't acknowledge that some things are just or ethical or safe or healthy, if you can't acknowledge that fire hot, burn bad, that's not a judgment. But if you can't acknowledge that, you're brainwashed, you're broken. You got a broken mind. You're useless. You wouldn't survive in the real world for a day. And it really pains me because this is one of those issues that I really don't want to care about. And I got on this subject by talking about that Olympics thing, but that's my point. This is such a distraction. I'm talking about it to show you a sane perspective, a person who isn't actually tainted by this nonsense. I haven't learned to hate anybody. I don't hate gay people, and I don't hate conservatives even for being against them. I don't hate you people. What I hate is the politicization about all this. I hate the culture war about it. I hate that my friends are used as human shields for this. I hate that my friends who might happen to be gay or trans get used as human shields for big corporations to wave rainbow flags in your face, and if you don't like their products, now you hate gay people or something. I can't stand this anymore. I can't take it another day. Oh, Thorne, I thought you were enlightened. I am enlightened, but at the same time, fire, hot, burning, bad. Stop. Enough. And I see this on Facebook. I just see post after post of assholes just constantly. That's all they care about. The world is burning around you, and all you care about is that one person wears a dress and one doesn't, or one likes pronouns and one doesn't. You're mentally fucked. You've got nothing. You're an NPC. You have no mind. And I'm ranting about it because someone's going to say, well, why don't you turn it off? You're right. Trust me, I'm not unaware of what my problem is. It's just that you can't get away from it. I go to play a video game, bang, there it is, right in my face again. Enough. I've often said, you are safe with me if you're different. I don't care about your difference. When I say I don't care, I mean, I don't judge you for it. That's all I mean. It's a figure of speech. I mean, I care if it matters to you, of course. If it's a big part of what makes you who you are, and it made you a good person, then let's celebrate that. That's not ever been a problem. What I'm saying is it doesn't change whether I like you or not. And that's what's happened, is that both camps, the white hats and the black, have made this a major issue because it is one of the ways. So you guys, I don't know how deeply you think about it. I don't know how much you study these things. I don't know if you know how psyops work. I don't know if you know social engineering like I do. You know, as a really high-level magician, you get good at manipulation and propagandistic engineering. Look at E.A. Quetting. Look at me. Look at people like us. We're good marketers. We're charismatic, right? We're not wizards just with high IQs or something. We have a force of personality. If I were to meet you, unless you are incompatible with me, like there are some people the wavelengths just, we don't match. We just can't get along. Like I can't make you like me. I can't manipulate you. That exists. But if you see me work my magic in public, if I get you one-on-one, and I can read you and I can mirror you and I can convince you to do a lot of stuff. It's a dangerous thing because you can go too far with it very easily without realizing it. I've actually told some of my friends when we've been friends for a while and I realize that I'm pushing them into things. Oh, buy this game so we can play together. Like, I realize that I'm controlling things, and I go, I'm controlling too many things. I don't feel comfortable now because number one, it's not fun anymore. And number two, sometimes people start picking up on it and they feel like, well, I don't get to make any decisions. You know, whenever Thorne's around, he like dominates everything. I'm not trying to dominate things. It's just, I have a force of character, a force of personality, right? So some people are charismatic, but that's not just what it is. You learn. You learn how. It's like natural NLP. Like you learn how to mirror, you learn how to talk to people, to read people, and then use that to make them, to sway them. And I try to do that for good now. When I was younger, I did that to get what I wanted from people. And I still do that like innocently, but I don't do it like, there is a difference, right? We all do it innocently. Everybody wants to get things their way. That's normal. But I'm saying I would have machinations in my mind. Like I'd have these machinations. I'd be like, well, if I can get this person, if I can get that person, and I would get them to do it. So I am very familiar. In fact, being raised in an environment that was very abusive, where I would have to read my family to know when the fight was coming, even though they were drunk, you'd think it'd be obvious. It wasn't always obvious. They could switch like that. You could just say one thing wrong and the whole thing explodes. You learn to read. You learn to read people. You learn to pick up on the subtle things. And you can tell what people are feeling and how they are reacting moment by moment. I was at the dentist today, and I was having a little conversation with people there. And the woman was Christian. And before she even said it, because of the dialogue we were having, the thought, you know, we perish for a lack of knowledge, right, came to mind. And I was going to say it because it was sort of in context of what we were saying. I was going to bring, because I knew she was Christian, so I was going to say, you know, we perish for a lack of knowledge or a lack of wisdom. Depends on which quote you like better. And then before I could say it, she said it, which means we were on the same wavelength. I picked up on her, or she picked up on mine. That's possible too. We picked up on each other. We were on the same level. But that's what happens when you're a reader and you are able to steer conversations. You can predict what people are going to say because you pretty much made them think it. This is why if you read my long, lengthy, like if I'm arguing with somebody, I cover every area where they might try to have an argument. I just dismantle them before they even get to talk. And it's because I can generally steer a conversation. So I'm talking to this person and she says it. She says, we perish for a lack of knowledge. Of course, I was going to say something like, you do know that original quote, what it really meant was gnosis. It didn't mean knowledge like facts and figures or knowing God, like, do you believe in God with faith? No. It meant gnosis. And gnosis, all that means, all the word gnosis means is knowing. It doesn't mean of specific knowledge. If you're a Gnostic, anything, Christian or non-Christian, if you're a Gnostic, that means you understand that the fundamental nature of reality is knowing. But this is what's got me fed up, is that when I use social media these days, I don't mean Discord. Discord's great. Discord, I get to have my conversations with people who are like, you guys filtered through the noise and you got into my Discord and we can have intelligent conversations there. By the way, join my Discord if you're smart and you want to have an intelligent conversation. We get up to some stupid shit too. So it's a mixed bag, but it's fun. We could use some new people chatting because not everybody chats in there. We got like 3 or 4 very active people, and I think everybody else just kind of watches, which is fine. I mean, you can lurk, but start a conversation. But like Facebook, I made a post today, and I've got people who think very highly of their knowledge and intelligence. And it's just, I feel like I have a kindergartner trying to tell me calculus or something. It's just Dunning-Kruger everywhere. It's literally Dunning-Kruger everywhere. It's literally idiocracy everywhere. And I just can't anymore. You know that saying, if you're not, what does it go? If you're the most intelligent person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Fuck yeah, I've been in the wrong room for a while. The problem is, once you get to a certain threshold, there ain't many rooms left to go in. There's a reason I'm usually the smartest one in the room. Not always. I'm going to say 9 out of 100 people, I'm in the top 3. That's so incredibly arrogant. If you were a bodybuilder and you could bench 400 fucking pounds, would you be called arrogant for saying I'm stronger than everybody else in this fucking room? No. Why is it when you're intelligent, people give you shit for admitting it? That's like when someone's beautiful, they're not allowed to say that they're beautiful. There's certain things that people are so fucking brittle and weak about that they can't stand that you've got something good. And you've got to humble yourself. You've got to pretend that you're not. Give me a break. This is indicative of the problem that I'm talking about. This is indicative of the fragility of the modern sapient. Besides the fact that they're all homo these days. Come on, laugh. It's a joke. Come on. Let me get the lulls in the comments. That was a joke. This is the fragility of the Western sapient. I say Western specifically because it's been targeted to white people. Don't, careful, I'm on you. Fuck YouTube. I don't care if my YouTube channel gets fucking deleted. I don't care if my Facebook gets deleted. I don't care anymore. I genuinely do not care. I would actually like the opportunity to boom, whoops, kill my bird, blow up my entire fucking social media, my entire business model, everything's, because I'm not even doing it anymore. Fuck it. It's just an act of ego now. It's just an edifice of ego. I don't even use it for anything. I don't sell anything. I don't teach anything because when I try, people just bicker. When I try to, like I had Nicolene Albright give me a whole massive shit. I love Nicolene Albright. She was like a friend of mine. She gave me a whole fuck ton of bullshit attitude. I made a post when they took a shot at Trump saying, you know, because people were cheering like, oh, I'm mad he didn't die. So I said, if that was your attitude about it, I don't want you on my friends list. You can follow my content. That's fine. I don't want you on my friends list because we're not friends if that's your mentality. So she chimes in, well, I laughed at it and I hoped he died. Are you gonna? Yep, bye, click. Fuck you then. And everybody's getting like this about everything. It's not just about politics. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not just about that. I don't mean you guys. You guys are, there's a reason you're here. You get what I'm saying. You're not as crazy or crazy at all as these other people. You're probably like me. You're not well adjusted to this sick society and you wish there was something you could do about it. Because let me tell you, there's a limit to what people like to use spiritual bypassing. A lot. They like to say, if you're enlightened, then you shouldn't care. That is not how it works. Go to Asia, my friend, and check out that dude in the orange robe buying an AK motherfucking 47. Some of those people come from the same wish a bitch would that I came from. It's just that they have a threshold. They have a rationale. They don't fuck around. But you will find out. Like the Shaolin guys, I love they master warriorship. They love to fight, but they're pacifists, right? But don't come trying to fuck with their temple, at least in the old days. Thorne, if you were so enlightened, you wouldn't talk about politics. No, you're just uncomfortable. You're a brittle fuck. They made you brittle. They convinced you that you're not supposed to care about these things, that these are above or below you. You are all so, You deserve what's coming. I don't. My family doesn't. Most of you guys don't. Those people deserve it. They deserve what's going on. Oh, Thorne, you sound like you're mad at the world and you're, an enlightened person doesn't play victim. Excuse me, the world's on fire. Are you going to grab a bucket? If you're not going to grab a bucket and put that shit out, don't talk to me about don't get upset. Anger is different from suffering. You can be angry, but it passes through you. And when it's over, you go back to normal. Remember, there's always been different schools of thought about what enlightenment looks like. And it turns out, by the way, enlightenment doesn't look like anything. There is no way to act when you're enlightened. There is no codified, there is no archetype. There are people who were enlightened that were magnificent archetypes, but that's not what enlightenment was. Like the Buddha. The Buddha was a magnificent humanitarian archetype, but he was not like his sweetness, his passivity, all that. That's not enlightenment. In other words, that was a choice he made because he felt that compassion, so he acted on it. But you could also choose to be a predator. That's what the elite do. That's right. Even Jesus got angry at the money changers. And I have got no problem with Yeshua. I prefer to say Yeshua, by the way. Good old Joshua of the ancient times. If he ever existed at all, which my jury's still out, I don't know. Some days I think he did. Other days I think he didn't. But when I think he did, I don't think he was anything like what the Bible says he was. I think he's a dude who went to India or something. I think he traveled the world or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he was just a rabbi, and I shouldn't say just a rabbi, but by the way, the same basic understanding that you get in non-dual Vedic mysticism is right there in rabbinical mysticism. We're all God. We're all manifestations of God. Consciousness is the I am that I am. That's the tetragrammaton. The Ein Sof, that's what it is. It's just a different, like the Eastern or Hindu tradition has their own map of consciousness. The Western tradition has its own. You have the Hellenistic or whatever, the Greek versions. You have the later versions. You have, Platonism, Neoplatonism. You have Hermeticism. You have Kabbalah, the Semitic tradition. They all talk about the same thing. This is why I often tell people, like, figure out which path will get you there first, the quickest. Get yourself a non-dual realization, even if it's just you realize that you are consciousness, even if you don't get the non-dual part right away, even if all you can do is recognize that you're not this body, but your consciousness, that's what you are. If you get that, every other mystical tradition and magical tradition will suddenly unfold for you. You'll have the cipher. You'll understand. This is why I could read the Bible, knowing a little bit of occult symbolism and a whole lot of this other thing. And I just had like some quirky thing happen. Hopefully it's all okay. All right. Am I still streaming? There's nothing wrong with the streams. Just let me know if there is, because I just suddenly lost, like Rumble just went away. Looks like this one's working. Yeah, YouTube's still up. All right. Well, anyway, at least YouTube's up. So I'll just yeah, I don't see the picture of the Rumble one anymore, but I guess it's still working. So long as you recognize that your soul, what you think of as you, is consciousness, not a brain, not a body, not some glowing light ball. When you recognize that your consciousness, magic becomes child's play, because you realize the physical world is just a projection of your mind. You know, the universe that you see is a reflection of you. I don't mean your body, by the way. Your body is part of the universe. So everything that's material is just a shadowy reflection of you. So when you pick up on that and you start doing the work and you start seeing it everywhere, that alone gives you a taste of enlightenment. Just that realization, because now you know, okay, whatever happens to this body doesn't happen to me. Notice I said this body, not my body. I'll still say my body most of the time. But when I'm really thinking clearly, I know this isn't my body because there's nothing to possess. It's an image. That alone will give you a modicum of enlightenment, because just knowing that, you know that no matter what happens to this body, it's not going to happen to you. This body could die in a fire, which would be fucking horrible to experience, by the way. I don't recommend it. Every review I've seen online says it's a terrible way to go. But if that happens, it's not happening to you any more than the hero getting hurt in a movie is happening to you. When you're watching a movie and the hero gets hurt, it's not happening to you. Does that mean you don't get mad? Thorne, why are you getting upset about the state of the world? Aren't you an enlightened master? Number one, I never said that. So let's just throw that out, throw that in trash, because there are times when I am not enlightened, trust me. There are times when I am right back into that material mindset and I'm fucked for a little while. I crash. That's normal. That's why it's called a practice, because you're practicing holding on to that enlightened state where things just don't necessarily cause suffering, but you can still get righteous anger, bitch. When you're watching a movie, when you're playing a video game, and your character gets destroyed, and you lost an hour of game time because you didn't save it, nothing happened to you, but you still can say, fuck. Enlightenment doesn't mean that everything is pleasure and nothing hurts. It means that you take the good and the bad as part of all being fulfilling. All of it's wonderful, including the pain. And part of the fun of pain is recognizing and saying, fuck that hurt, fuck you, don't do it again. That's part of the fun. So there's different ways that enlightenment can express itself. You can be a saintly figure that talks very slowly, is never upset, nothing bothers them, oh, everything is wonderful all the time. You can be that asshole. Most of those people are acting, by the way. Or you can actually be a being. You can actually enjoy the show fully. Invest yourself fully in the fucking show. That's another kind of enlightenment. I don't mean become a materialist necessarily. I'm saying you can lean into the experience of life fully, embracing the pleasure and the pain, the anger and the suffering even. You want to know what the ultimate form of enlightenment is? To not mind suffering. Ooh. All these little bitches seeking moksha and enlightenment so that they never suffer again. Ah, that's your attachment. You have to get to a point where even suffering is something you can look forward to. Most of the time, I'm not there. But sometimes, like my mother was dying, There were moments there I was in absolute agony. And yet it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. There were moments where I was in hell. The smell of shit up my nose. The sound of whimpering. Someone holding my hand. And yet there was a connection, and there was a beauty in it. Even the regrets. Even the regrets that I have are beautiful moments. Isn't that enlightenment? I ask you, is that not? Enlightenment is not numbness. Enlightenment doesn't make everything taste like milk toast porridge, you pussies. Enlightenment makes you reach out and grab the vibrancy of life while you have it. You don't transcend, oh, disappear. Fuck you. You're bypassing. Real enlightenment is you know that you're not this. And you embrace all of it. And it's not easy to do all the time. You can do it now and then. Everybody can do it for a little while. Some people can do it for a long while. There's sometimes I can go a whole day and I will act angry, but in my heart, I am loving every moment. Like there's a smiling face behind the, there's a smiling, see the difference? It's just shifting. It's not that big a difference. It's just a few muscles. It's a mask, you dummy. Right now, I'm serene inside. There isn't chatter. There isn't suffering. I am projecting an act. But some of it is sincere in the sense that this part bothers me. I am disgusted by the stupidity around me. And I personally cannot face tank the idiocy of the people that I'm surrounded by lately. I don't feel like a teacher right now. I feel like a judge. I feel that Libra energy right now. My North Node is Libra. So by the time I'm an old man, I'll probably be acting very, not judgy, but I'll probably have lost some of my sense of humor. Be more like Mr. Spock. Path of Severity. By the way, I had a funny epiphany today. My wife and I, we were watching the old Star Trek. I fucking love, I could watch the old Star Trek back to back. It could be on every day. You know, I wish that it was just in reruns all the time and I could just have a channel that would just occasionally pop an old Star Trek up. I love the original series more than anything. And I really feel like, you know, we could really use that energy in this world. I said to my wife, we don't have heroes like this anymore. Manly men doing manly things, womanly women doing womanly things, people doing real things. But so noble about it. Like I always thought Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock were my two biggest idols from that show. I really would have loved to be either of them. But probably Captain Kirk. Not people go, Captain Kirk's such a ladies' man. Yeah, but you know who got the most bitches? McCoy. If you do the body count in the original show, McCoy was like, he tripled, I think, Kirk. There's episodes where he comes out with a woman in each arm. He was always getting more. Here's something you don't know, though. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy Kether, Chokma, and Binah. I don't think I got them in the right thing, but Spock would be severity. McCoy would be wisdom. And Kirk, the crown. And they even have them standing. If you ever look, very often, that's how they're positioned. Kirk in the middle, McCoy's usually on his left, Spock's usually on his right. So when you're facing it, that left-hand path is Spock, the path of severity, the path of intellect. McCoy is the path of mercy, wisdom, love. And Kirk, he's that center path of just pure divinity, the crown. Is that not interesting? Did you know that if you know where to look in pop culture, you can find references to things that you don't even realize are there everywhere? It makes you a little crazy, actually. Like when you try to talk to a normal person who's like, dude, I just like Star Trek. I didn't know there was this shit. I'm not saying they had it in there, but I mean, come on, you know Spock's hand gesture, right? You know that's a rabbinical hand sign, right? Kirk was a Promethean motherfucker. Kirk was absolutely an archetype of Prometheus. Absolutely. A lover of humanity. An uplifter of humankind. Wanted to bring fire from the gods and give it to mankind. That is such a Kirk. Kirk would have been probably friends with Prometheus, I would think. He was absolutely like a perfect example of being a humanist. But if you know where to look, you can see it everywhere. This is what it's like. Like if you get really far into a mystery school, like a legit one, like maybe you're a Mason or something, when you get far enough and you get the realization that these mystery schools are trying to give you, you start to see it everywhere. You start to realize, oh, this is what they see when they're watching pop culture. They see these things that other people don't. Just like with religion, I can look at the Bible, I can look at Christian religion, and I can easily pluck out the non-duality, the mysticism. I can pluck out the Kabbalah. I can pluck it out and be like, by the way, this is a metaphor. This is an allegory. This is teaching you higher metaphysical concepts with cargo cult and ancient history mythology. That's all it's doing. It probably changed history. It probably changed what really happened to fit a mystical meaning if you know the symbols. You don't even need to know a lot of them. You just need a few. Just a few occult symbols, a little bit of a cipher, knowing non-duality, and the Christian Bible suddenly makes total sense. Yes, the Christian Bible makes total sense. Syncubus, that's a good one. Random. Could you imagine how pissed your higher self would be if it didn't autosave a 35-year-old playthrough? Sorry, my ADHD kicked in. It's good, man. That's a good joke. I think that he would have qualified as something akin to a non-dualist. I don't know if he would have been a... Here's the thing. Non-duality actually isn't just one monolithic belief. Non-duality, at its most fundamental level, is very simple. It doesn't actually make a lot of claims. It is fundamentally the realization, not that we're all one, that's what it sounds like it means. Non-duality, the fundamental realization of non-duality, is that this mystery that in English we call consciousness is the fundamental nature of reality itself. And that consciousness has no divisions, no boundaries, no edges. There's ignorance and knowledge, but knowledge itself is infinite. In other words, knowing has no boundary. You can have perspectives, you can have limited perspectives, but consciousness is unlimited. It's eternal. That understanding means that everything, so it's one vast ocean of no thing consciousness in which all things appear, like waves on an ocean or something like that. So if Jesus was a non-dualist, I don't know if he would have been a non-dualist that would have agreed with everything I think, because there's different, like I had this metaphor earlier today that I was trying to try to explain to people. All of these different mystical traditions can get you to the top of the mountain. But once you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to have a very specific perspective, unless you're very careful to then study the other paths to the top of the mountain. So if all you do is Advaita Vedanta, you can get a fundamentalist mentality where that is the only and truest expression of metaphysics. No, that is not correct. That is only one perspective of the top of the mountain. All of these will get you there. When you get to the top of the mountain, think of it literally. Imagine you have a mountain, right? A big mountain. We'll say it's 2 miles, the base is 2 miles across, right? Big ass mountain. And it just boop, goes a couple thousand feet in the air. And there's a whole bunch of different paths that will get you to the top lookout at the top of the mountain. And when you take that path, if you get to the top and just stop, that's your view. You get to see this beautiful vista. But if you don't look in other directions, you only get that one vista. So if you follow non-duality, for example, to the top of the mountain, then non-duality looks like Advaita. And if you take Kabbalah to the top of the mountain, non-duality looks like Kabbalah. And if you take Hermeticism, if you take Taoism, if you take Buddhism, Zen, any one you take is going to give you a very specific vista. And you would be a fool to think that that is what non-duality or whatever it is. You've got to sample at least, just sample all of these different pathways to get a little glimpse, at least, if you're not going to do the whole path itself, at least knowing what you know, since you're at the top of the mountain, go and see what the other vistas look like. This will mean maybe not working through the Kabbalah. I don't need to necessarily, I might anyway, I don't necessarily need to go through every Sephira. I don't need to necessarily take each path. I don't need to do all that necessarily. Maybe I should, maybe I want to, but I don't have to. All I have to do is recognize the correspondences between what those things represent and what I already know from my foundational tradition. And then I can equate things and it gives me a different perspective. And when I get to the top, man, I go, oh, that's what it looks like from this view. And I can see where the two overlap because there's always an overlap. That's correct, Tommy Carlson. It's one of the, but it's only one map. It's not the only map. Advaita maps it out. Vishishta Advaita, Hinduism. Go study Tantra. Go study really good non-dual versions of the Vedas. In other words, not just non-duality, the more secularized version of metaphysics. Because if you look, there is non-duality without anything more than the Bhagavad Gita or something. In fact, listen to people like, Rupert, not Sheldrake. What's his name? Fuck. I can't remember his name now. Anyway, listen to, there are non-dual teachers that don't talk about Vedic anything. They don't speak of Brahman. They don't speak of any of those things. They'll just say consciousness. They won't use. Yes, Rupert Spira. Thank you, honey. I don't know why I couldn't remember his name. I love listening to. He's one of the better ones you can listen to. Not the only one, but one of the better ones. In other words, he's one of the ones that he completely extracts the non-duality from the lore and just gives you the non-duality. And that's why he's so good, because anybody can listen to him. I'm not saying he gets it all right, by the way, but I would love hanging out with him. He and I would have good, I don't know if we'd get along, but I think we'd have really good productive conversation. I think we'd agree on a lot. And I think we would learn from each other quite a lot. He's another one that I recommend highly. But you can listen to him and you don't have to worry about your religion getting in the way, and you don't have to worry about his religion getting in the way. There is no dogma there. It is just consciousness, and these are the lessons. But here's the fucking good part. All of these traditions are nothing more than paths to the top of the mountain. They get you to the threshold. That's the beginning. That's the fucking beginning. That's initiation. I've said to, I think it was Eddie, I consider everybody a neophyte. Like you're not even initiated until or unless, and I mean that. You're not truly initiated until you have had, again, the language fails because if I say until you've had, that doesn't quite work, but just hear me out. Until you've had that transcendental ego death gnosis, that full gnosis of what you are. I don't mean that you've seen the multiverse or anything. I don't mean that. I just mean true and pure gnosis. If you've attained gnosis, in other words, self-awareness, if you've come to know thyself, that is the real meaning of that inscription on the Temple of Apollo. It doesn't mean know that you're strong, that you're a human, and figure out all your shit. That's just a piece of it. You can skip all that. Know thyself means have gnosis, to know that you are knowing. That what you are is not this person, but that you are knowing. That's it. This is not the pinnacle. That's just the door out of the bondage of your mind. That's all it is. And once you have attained that door, once you have opened it and stepped through, now you recognize the multiverse within that is accessible to you, and you have a choice to make. And there are no wrong choices from there. There's no, you're free. Your karma is over if you let it. You can continue to incarnate as often as you wish without karma. What is karma? Karma is just attachment. What is attachment? People like to equate attachment with habit as if all habit is attachment. That is not true. What we think of as karmic attachment is actually any one of those things that is suffering oriented. So for example, if I have a habit like I pick my nose, that's not karma. Do you know that karma, the attachment, would be in if you felt shame every time you picked your nose? So picking your nose, it's a bad habit. Oh, it's gross. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. But if every time you did it, you were like, God, I'm such a disgusting piece of shit, that's your karmic attack. Karma, by the way, to really get ahead of karma is shadow work. Guys, this is what drives me crazy. Because to me, this is the stuff that to me is like, it's like a big spotlight in my face. It's so obvious. Shadow work is a way, it's probably the best way for a Western person in particular to get ahead of karma, to actually recognize what karma is. It's attachment, but that attachment is rooted in things that you're not aware of, and it's always negative. Real attachment is a negative. It's not a positive. You can be positively attached. What's positive attachment? There is nothing wrong with love or desire. What makes desire bad, it's not desiring. You can't stop desiring. That's the secret. You can't stop desire. Desire is built into the game. You either stop playing completely or you accept that desire is part of the game. Alan Watts spoke of this. He would say that to do away with desire, it's a double bind because that is a desire. Desire by itself is not attachment. Attachment is what you do or how you feel or how you react, not respond, react when desires are not fulfilled. If you can have a burning desire, I want this so badly, but if you don't get it, you're fine. That's not attachment. That's not karma. There's nothing there. to point at and say that's toxic to you. Oh, but Thorne, desire keeps you from becoming enlightened. That's nonsense. You wouldn't seek enlightenment at all if you didn't desire it. Desire is not the problem, just like hate is not the problem. You have to be able to hate. And it's not even the opposite of love. It's actually a condition of love. It's a state of love to be in hate. Hate requires love. You have to love to hate. You cannot hate without love. You cannot do it. That's not true, Thorne. I hate this person. I don't love them. No, you're confusing passion. Love is not a passion. Love transcends any feeling. Love is something else. Love is indescribable. Ask someone to describe true love. They can't do it. I've sat there and people say, like, project love into whatever to try to bring it, like, you know, if you want to make contact with a certain entity, project love towards it. What does that mean, actually? Because I don't confuse passion for love. To me, love doesn't feel like anything. I'm not saying it's numbness, but it doesn't feel like anything. Love doesn't feel like anything. Love is compassion externalized. Love is not a feeling. Feelings come from love. Love creates feelings or leads to feelings. It is not a feeling. Hate is a feeling. In other words, hate is a condition of love. Indifference is the opposite of love. True indifference. I don't mean I don't care what happens to you. I mean, the fact that you exist, I don't even acknowledge. Like that kind of indifference. That is the opposite of love. Love is knowing. It is a knowing. Yes, Christian. Very well said. Love is a part of knowing. Because when you withdraw from the illusion, when you pull back and you recognize that your consciousness manifesting as this, you're not this. This is just what consciousness looks like. When you start to pull back, love itself is the knowing of it. Yes, love is knowing. Love is gnosis. Gnosis is love. God is love. Hi. I should do like a whole series where I just untangle like common Christian and Abrahamic sayings and axioms and really pull them apart for you and show you what they really mean. When they say God is love, they don't mean God is passionate. I love you. They mean God is knowing, is compassion. Compassion, knowing, love. These are all the same word. Consciousness is the same word. Trust me, it doesn't sound like it because the dictionary doesn't say it. But when you actually get it, all of these words mean the same thing. Ready? Consciousness, eternity, existence, bliss. By bliss, I don't mean the feeling. I mean that fulfillment that creates feelings. Love, knowing. There's a butt ton of words, but those are just a few examples. Those are a few examples. All those words mean the same thing to a mystic. There's very little difference. They're just different ways of saying the same thing. They're different ways that thing translates into our linguistic syntactical expression. All of those words point to the same ineffable divine source. Consciousness, love, knowing, bliss, existence, eternity. All of those words point to that which we cannot define. They're all ways of saying what cannot be said. All of them. Everything else, there's probably a few other words. I don't have a complete list, but I'm just giving you examples. They all mean that, whether they know it or not. When I say to my wife, I love you, it means I know you. I know you are knowing. Mm. Isn't this a better dialogue than what we had in the beginning? Yeah, it is. I hated talking about that. Truly hated it, which means I loved it. But I'm frustrated. Let me be clear. I am absolutely frustrated lately. I feel like why do I bother? And I think I've come to a decision, though it hasn't quite formed in my mind what it's going to look like. But I think all of the grand plans I had earlier to rebrand and create an order and all that, what I'm going to do, if this holds, and I'm always leery about telling you guys my plans because especially when you have ADHD, you never carry it out. What I would like to do, maybe not right away, but soon, is I want to find an apprentice or two or three. And I mean a true apprentice. I mean someone who will, they're not just trying to learn from me to create their own. No. I want someone to be an apprentice. I don't usually do this. Usually I say, I want you to be like my equal or whatever. We're going to walk hand in hand. You know what? That's great, but that only works with people who are already on your level. I've come to realize that one of the things that I've done wrong in my outreach is I've had the attitude of a teacher without admitting it. In other words, I demand that you listen to me, but I tell you, you don't have to. But then I realized that when I get challenged, if you ever really watch me get challenged by somebody, if I'm truly wrong or I'm learning something, I am humble as fuck. I shut up and I listen immediately. Like in the Discord, we're having like dialogues about Q stuff, and every once in a while I pull in somebody who I know knows more than me about something, and I say, hey, what do you think about this? And whatever they say, I don't argue with them. I listen. I'll tell them what I think, but I'll listen. We don't argue. I don't say, oh, you're wrong and blah, 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 what a stupid idea. But if you come in with something that I know is wrong, I'm gonna break it down on you. And if you try to insist on me, I'll be like, look, I'm not trying to throw my weight around, but shut up. You're wrong. He'll go, that's so arrogant. No, it's not. If you go to a classroom and the teacher says 1 + 1 = 2, and you say, no, it's not, what do you think happens? So I think what I need to do is, without, like, I'm going to need maybe some help to make sure it doesn't go to my head, because when I was younger, it did. But I'm going to have to start throwing my weight around a little bit and act like the teacher that I want to be. Act like the guide, the guru, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm not a guru, because guru has a specific meaning. I'm not that. Gurus don't do this stuff on purpose. A true guru is just somebody who attained it and people just come to them. They don't go out looking for students. But a guide or a teacher, they absolutely can. And if they're qualified, they should. I believe I am more than qualified. Way more than 90% of the people, 99, I'm going to say way more than 99% of the people in this occultist community. Sorry, pals, if any of you feel that that is arrogant, but there's not a lot of you that impress me. And the ones who do, they're usually, we're talking in private and we're having different conversations than we have in public. And we're sharing notes. We're not arguing. We're like, yes, that's true. Yes, that's good too. What do you think? Totally different approach. There's no adversarialism there. We're cooperating. Totally different. When I make a post on Facebook and people are hung up on my choice of words, or they are just Dunning-Kruger morons that are trying to, even if they're not arguing, sometimes just the stuff that people put in, it's just, you really thought that was what I was talking about? Or you thought that was smart? You thought that, no, you just said the most non sequitur, doesn't follow thing. And I see this so much, and it's getting to the point where I'm not commenting on people's comments much anymore. Because in some cases, I'd have to like spend hours just pulling apart what they said. So I just go, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll like it and just ignore it. No, I need some apprentices. 1 or 2 to start. Preferably 2, because I like having a team. I like working with 2 or 3 people. Because it's good, because then you guys can work together, and then you can work with me, and then we can bounce things around. It works good. But I'm not sure how to even open that door, because I'm going to get a whole fuck ton of people like I did before with my mentorship thing, who are going to want to pay me, and then I have to kiss their ass when they're wrong. So what I'm looking for are 2 or 3 people for free. Yes, I just said it. I'm looking for 2 or 3 people who want to be my apprentice for free and are willing to work their ass off if necessary. If I say study this, you're not going to just go, yeah, I'll study it, and then show up next week to the class and be like, oh, I didn't even watch it. Fuck you. You just wasted everybody's time. When I did the mentorship class, that's one of the reasons I stopped doing it. Because I would say, okay, in between now and then, I want everybody to do this. Nobody would do it. So you're really just paying me to have another live stream. That's all it is. Well, I might as well have just released paid live streams. The reason for wanting a few apprentices is because once they are initiated, once I have decided that they have reached the level where I feel that they are ready, when I decide to start an order, you'd be in that inner order. You would be helping me set up an order. But the thing is, I've got to be able to tell you that you're ready or you're not. I've got to be able to be honest with you. You've got to be, when I say humble, I don't mean inferior. That's why I don't like the word humility, because most people think it means something inferior. When I say humble, I mean you don't know everything. That's all I mean. This is why I don't like the word humility, because most people get it wrong. So I don't use it. It's like saying, don't use the word Celtic when it's really Celtic, right? Like, I just won't even use the word. I can't, like, if I talk to somebody who's like into basketball, I'd be like, well, the Celts. You're like, you mean the Celtics? I'm looking for people who will listen to what I'm saying and learn. And then, once they've attained certain threshold, then we turn it into something bigger. The problem is that to be an apprentice to someone like me means you're not in it just to learn. Because then you're just a mentor. I'm just your mentor. It's not the same thing. An apprentice is, they're seeking a door into a trade, right? That's what an apprentice means. And you're going to be part of a guild when that apprenticeship is done. In other words, we're going to be partners. And you can go on your own way if we're not compatible in the end of the day. That's fine. If you get to a point, you say, you know what, I got it, I'm gone. But no, I'm looking for partners. People can say, well, why don't you want people who are already advanced? Because people who are already advanced enough, most of them are independent and they don't want to do anything else. I've tried. I've reached out to people who I saw as having a similar level of understanding of things, And without exception, they might be giant fans of mine, but they're like, I'm doing my own thing. I respect that. Why do you think I never joined Balg or anything? Because I don't want to join Balg. EA's a fun guy. He's a good guy. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time. Well, not a long, couple of years now. And I'm loving the fact that he and JD and everybody, they're starting to do videos together. And I want nothing but the best for them as a business, as a collective. It's just not the one I want to be in. I, even though I have criticisms of them, they know this, but I love them. To me, they're good people. Even if I see them as, yes, they're trying to profit from things. Yes, I don't mind. I'm a left-hand path guy. It doesn't bother me that you want to profit off your skill set. It does not faze me. Just don't be a bullshit artist and lie the whole time. You can dress it up. You can have a nice floor show, especially if that floor show works. I don't care what you call it. I don't care if you're a firm believer in your, Lionsgate ritual that you're doing and you're selling. If it's helping people, who cares? Because it will help people. The nature of true magic isn't about what you do. It's about the mind state that it achieves. You can literally cast a spell, and I've said this a million times jokingly, pissing counterclockwise in a toilet. If it means something to you, if it changes like Bashar, he says you got to have a permission slip, and that's how you change your. If it's your permission slip to see a different timeline, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a ritual, or it could be burping the fucking Star-Spangled Banner. It could be anything you want it to be. So there is no such thing, in my opinion, ultimately. Yeah, there are charlatans, but there is no such thing as a true charlatan, because even a charlatan can have a benevolent effect. So I don't get really weirded out when people are maybe profiting from what they do. If their message is decent and they're not just bold-faced lying, there is a difference. It's a subtle difference. It's hard to explain. I can't just, because for me, it's not black and white. It's a very nuanced thing to be a charlatan or not. And I've had a lot of people say, like, Thorne, you're legitimate, but some of the people you hang out with are not. I'm like, you don't know these people. I do. I've talked to them. They believe what they're saying to you. A charlatan doesn't. Believe me, I read people for a living. I can know within a second if the person I'm talking to is just parroting mystical wisdom. EA does not parrot mystical wisdom. JD does not parrot mystical wisdom. Yes, they will parrot the words, but they are not parroting the understanding. They understand it. EA genuinely loves spiritual, mystical things. He eats and sleeps it too. It's probably not even that profitable for him anymore. In all full disclosure, I'm sure he makes bank on Balg, but he doesn't make as much now that his YouTube's gone. I guarantee it. I guarantee he had to go back full-time, part-time, and he's still doing it. That means he loves it. It's what he believes. Now, maybe he doesn't believe every letter of what he says. Maybe, he doesn't really believe in Lucifer and Azazel and all. Maybe those are just metaphors or archetypes or egregores for him. That is very likely. But he believes in the spirituality side that is underlying it. He does. Get to know him in private. It's not even a gear he has to switch into. It's always there like me. It's always on tap. I could be playing we could be playing a video game. It's not like you have to switch gears. It's there. He doesn't have to look it up. He knows the same stuff. So this is why I love my brother EA. I love JD. Even if they have flaws that bother me, even if they sometimes get things wrong, you notice that's the difference. I respect them enough to say it. By the way, they gave me a really sweet shout out the other night. Thank you guys, by the way. And I would like to point out, make sure you check out EA and JD and all them. They're all doing their own things on, EA's mostly on Odyssey. JD is on YouTube. Light of the Darkness. Make sure you guys follow them too. Show them your support, because in this time, especially after all the sense, give them your love too, if you don't already. Hell, like the people who hate me too. I don't care. I'm reading you guys' chat and I got carried away. Stu Henny asks, hey DH, what's happening with the books or grimoires you were putting out? I've put everything on hold. I've kind of retired for a while because number one, I can't concentrate to the degree that I need to write such books right now. If you saw my books in progress folder, you would realize that I've got somewhere in the order of magnitude of around 500,000 or 600,000 words written. None of it will ever be put out to the public, ever. Because it's just it's beautiful shit. I've read through some of it again now going like, wow, that's all good. The problem is it won't work as a book. It's just random shit. It's not random, but it's like streams of consciousness trying to explain things. And I go, this is beautiful downloads, but I can't get it. I can't publish this. It's not coherent enough. I do have one that there's 3 or 4 books I would like to do, but I need the world. My focus needs to be off the external world again. I have to trust that the world is okay. And because right now it's not that I feel like I am changing the world. It's like, I want to see what's going on so that I can navigate around the shit that's coming. People go like, Thorne, you're always doing this and that. You're talking politics. Motherfuckers, because I see the storm coming. I want to make sure. Oh, you want to say hi to the puppy? He's going to go for a walk. Puppy's awake. You guys want to meet Puppy? Here he is. His name is Buster. Hey, Buster. Look at him. He's a cutie. He's sleepy.
He is.
He's very sleepy. He's a puppy. He's only 3 months old.
He's very cuddlesome, too.
He's very cuddlesome.
He's very sweet.
Aww.
He's a sweetie.
Aww.
I'm going to go pee now.
JD does some good rituals. He does. I'm not into the animal sacrifice stuff, by the way. He did one for me, and I let him do it. Like, I'm not going to say no, because it's like he's gonna put the animal to death anyway, and all that. I'm not into animal sacrifice. I never have been. But he does good rituals too. I've watched quite a few. He pours his soul into them. Trust me. He's not just acting. He's not. JD's a genuine practitioner. EA's a genuine practitioner. They may not get everything right. They may misread. They may be new agey. They may be you can criticize all you want, but they're not fake. Just like people can criticize me all day long, but I ain't fake. So there's plenty of things you can criticize, but they're not full of shit. They do believe and they do practice these things. We all burn out from time to time. We don't practice them 24/7. You're not supposed to, but they all practice these things. So give them credit. I do. And there's other guys. Travis Meg is still one of my favorite YouTubers who's never been on my channel. Occasionally I text him and he texts back, but he's got his own thing going and I'll leave him alone. I'd love to get him on, but Travis Magus, he's probably streaming right now. He streams the same time of night as I do usually. He's got a great, I'm not saying I agree with every single thing he says, but he's got a great shtick. He's got great knowledge. He knows a lot. I've learned a thing or two from him. He might have learned a thing or two from me, but I've definitely learned a thing or two from him. Guy's a magnificent bookworm. He's a magnificent practitioner. He knows his shit really well. I'm more like a sorcerer. It just kind of comes out of me. I don't research much. I just kind of get it. He's both. He gets it and he learns it and he gets it. He's a great practitioner. Yeah, Jose, I don't know if I can agree with that, but I got my own reasons for that. But I don't like saying bad things. Like, if you like him, by all means, like, continue learning from him. It's not that everything he says is wrong either, by the way. I don't mean that. You know, there's a reason why he ended up on the other side of the split when Balg had their problems. There's a reason for that. And I don't like airing people's dirty laundry, so I'll just leave it at that. But Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'd rather say nice things about people I like than negative things about people I don't. That's always been my mentality. It's sort of like, I think it was Plato, or was it Socrates? You know, someone would come to him with like gossip, and he'd be like, does it involve me? Is it negative? Like, why are you coming? And like there was like this list of things, like he'd just say, I don't want to hear it. If it doesn't really affect me, just right off the bat, I don't need to know. I don't care. Is someone in danger if I don't know? Like, is it something like that? That might be different, you know? So it's got to be, if there isn't a pragmatic reason for me to care, I don't want to know. If it's negative, if it's just saying negative things about people, I don't want to hear it. Like, don't gossip to me. I don't like gossip. I don't like shit talking. Like, there's people that I know that like they just live to gossip and shit talk. It's like all they want to do. You get them in a room, and within like 5 minutes, all they do is they're just talking about what such and so said and how stupid they are and blah 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 blah. And I just my eyes glaze over and I just want to leave the room. That doesn't mean that I never talk about anybody, but there's a time and a place. Like, my wife and I will talk because we're married. It's different. When you're married, you're like, believe it or not, when you're married long enough, it's like you become each other's subconscious. Like, it's really weird because I can't make decisions as easily now without consulting my wife. Like, I feel like my wife and I have to agree on things to do anything, which is good and bad, by the way. But likewise, she comes to me with things. So we like share a brain now. So it's like I've become the left hemisphere for her brain, she's become the right for mine, or vice versa, whatever. So it's a little different. Sometimes I have to talk to her because she, like, you know, she gets me. Like, she knows what matters and we can talk it out. But I can't stand, like, you'll notice I don't like talking about people. This is why I don't like community drama. I hate community drama because it's usually just stupid. I can't speak to that, Stu. Stu asked, in history, when a coven of witches came together, didn't they each offer their own personal skills? Together, their combined magical power increased the positive results and speeded up manifestations. I can't speak to that. There's a lot of... Honestly, I don't care. Let me be blunt. I don't really care. There's so much superstitious stuff out there. There's so much lore. And I'm not saying that it's wrong if you're into that. I'm saying for me, that's just a waste of time. I don't really worry about that stuff. I don't mean to sound dismissive of it. It's just that there's an argument to be made for multiple sorcerers and wizards and witches coming together, and then there's an argument for being solo. I will tell you this, a true master doesn't need company. They can change the universe by pissing counterclockwise in a toilet. I'm not kidding. Go listen to Damien Eccles, the most powerful magicians he knew. Literally could just twist a ring on their finger and they could manifest things. Sometimes supernaturally obvious, like paranormal shit would happen. So you don't need to have multiples. You can. For some people, you do want that. But here's the deal. If you're into the metaphysics I'm into, you recognize that we're all Jesus, we're all Neo, we're all the main character in a movie filled with nothing but main characters. We're all Neo. Neo does not need. He's the all-powerful Neo. He is God. He is the center. So you don't necessarily need a group. But if you want communion and camaraderie, that's why you have one. So when I'm saying I want like apprentices and I want to form a community and an order, it's because I'm lonely. It's because, like I said, that old saying, if you're the most intelligent, smartest, knowledgeable one in the room, you're in the wrong room. I'm trying to find a better room, and if I can't find one, I want to make one. I at least want to make a room where I have people that I can talk to who will get it. Not have the same thoughts as me, the same fundamental understanding as me. It's that fundamental perspective that matters to me. Like, that's the litmus test. If you get that fundamental thing, then everything else is just gravy. That's the shit that's interesting. It's like knowing that the person you're talking to is an expert, right? You don't want to just go to a machine shop, a mechanic shop, and just trust that the guy's a mechanic. You got to know he's a mechanic. You don't want somebody who just stayed at a Holiday Inn last night doing your fucking surgery. You want to actually know they're a surgeon. This is why secret societies exist. This is why mystery schools exist. This is why you have the Masonic orders. This is why you have these Rosicrucians and Golden Dawn and Thelema. Because you can be assured, based on the reputation of the system or the organization, that you're part of a collective that will be on the level. You'll be on the same level. You'll understand. You'll have that foundation that is in common. This is something that a solitary doesn't get, and it sucks. That's the drawback. It's not that being with a group of witches makes you stronger. It's that being solitary is a very lonely path. And it's a lonely path out of lonely paths. Because a mystic, by definition, in this world anyway, is an outcast. You are always beyond the pale. You have to be. You cannot be mystically aware. You cannot be self-realized. You cannot be a master and be of this society. You cannot. I don't mean you can't be in this society. Listen to the words I'm using. Don't miss the point. You cannot be a master and be of this world. But you can be a master in this world. So you've got to come out. You've got to, I don't mean isolate yourself. What I'm saying is that once you reach a certain threshold, you won't relate to rank and file people anymore. Thanks, Jose. I see that. He says, I think I'm interested in being your apprentice. Hit me. No, you hit me up, bro. How about that? You hit me up. I think you have me on Facebook. Try hitting me up, and we'll see. It might be a good idea. It might not be. But also at this moment, it's just a seed idea, because to do this correctly, I will need to dedicate, and so will you. So I'm not saying yes or no. I'm saying noted. And that means that there potentially would be tests. That's right, Christian. It certainly does. Inerta says, move with the world, not of it. Yes. Correct. The world moves around you, boys and girls. Didn't you know that? You know, the only true exit to the cycle of samsara is not to stop reincarnating. That's just the language for it. Because you don't incarnate anymore. It's true. You are permanent. But you still watch incarnation. You know, people say, oh, when you reach enlightenment, you don't incarnate anymore. They think that means automatically that that's literal. It can be. It can mean that in the literal sense. But what it really means is the understanding of incarnation changes. Every moment that you are in an egoic, personalized state, that's incarnation. When you've transcended that, you're not incarnated anymore. When I am here in a proper state of gnosis, even when I'm talking, I'm not incarnated. I bet you didn't know that. But Thorne, you're incarnated, you're talking. No, I'm witnessing. There's a difference. There's no I involved in the usual sense. There's the ultimate I. That is all. There's no person here. There's just a mouth flapping and I'm listening to it. Bet you didn't know that either. There's times when I'm talking, I have no idea what I'm saying. Did you know that? It's like I'm channeling another spirit. I'm not planning what I'm saying half the time. It's just stream of consciousness. I'm egoless, just blurting out what's coming to mind. And sometimes I slide back into an ego state and then out again. Yeah, Ninurta's right. Behemoth is pretty genuine too. Yep. I got nothing but love for Behemoth X. Again, doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. That should never be what that means. I respect the living daylights out of Behemoth X. He's one of the true blue demonolators I've ever seen. And he's one of the wisest. He's a different kind of wisdom to mine, but he's very sensitive. His heart is enormous. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever seen in this path. One of the most genuinely compassionate guys I've ever seen on this path. He will take his shirt off and give it to you if you need it. Behemoth X is a genuinely compassionate guy, and he works with some of the darkest entities on the block. Isn't that something? So yes, I've got nothing but positive things to say about Behemoth X. Nothing but positive. He is one of the goods, one of the greats. He absolutely is. Yes, hardcore. In fact, he was one of the inspirations. Him and EA were both inspirations for the art. One of the reasons I got involved in doing ritual again is because I saw it as an art form more than anything. I didn't believe, even when I wrote Become the Maelstrom, I even said it in Become the Maelstrom, the rituals don't do anything. They are a celebration of what is already done. Unless you have that mentality, you don't get magic or sorcery at all. You don't understand it unless you get that, what that means. The rituals don't cause anything. They're not required. They're an art form. They've always been an art form. Thorne, so magic is a science. No, it's not. Not in the literal, not in the truest sense of the word science. No, it's a discipline. It's a practice. It's a technology, but it is not really a science. In fact, if you apply science to magic, you will blow both up. They won't work. They're incompatible because it doesn't work that way. Magic is a form of psychology if it's anything scientific. If it's anything like that, it's a form of psychology. The word psyche meant spirit or soul. Magic is the art of the soul or the psyche or the spirit. It is an art. I like it when you spell it with an E in the end because that makes it sound all cool. It is an art. It is an artifice of spirit. It is not a science. Yes, Stu, that's right about D and Kelly and all that, but that's works-based mentality. If neither of them were on the same level as a character, like I'm sorry, they may have accomplished something that you find really important. Maybe they had a stronger connection to spirits, or maybe they were just good cryptographers and they were spies. Whatever your rationale, I'd have to meet them, but just reading about them, they didn't understand much of shit. They just didn't. I'm sorry. People worship those two. Nope. They were practitioners. They created an important system. I'm not denying that. But you can't put them up on the same level as a true magician. You just can't. A true magus, a true enlightened one, a true achieved, a realized master. Neither of them were that. So if you're into the magic as works thing, sure, team up with 1 million people. Why stop there? Why not just create a giant collective where you all just come together and do ritual? You can do that, but that's not what a mystic is. See, I'm more of a mystic. I'm more into that. I don't care about witches and warlocks and necromancers. That's flim-flam men and women. That's a practice. That's a profession. A mystic is not a profession. A witch is a profession. A sorcerer is a profession. Dude, Thorne, witchcraft is my religion. Okay, whatever. A witch is a title of a profession. It just is. Now, maybe you define it differently. That's fine. Maybe to you, witch means mystic. Okay. But a mystic is not a professional. A mystic is a kind of metaphysical philosopher. They're a seeker. They're someone on a spiritual journey. They're on a path. They're awakening, or they've already awakened, or they're a teacher. Teacher is a profession. A mystic is not. You can be a teacher and a mystic. You can be a teacher of mysticism. You can be a mystical teacher. But a mystic by itself is simply someone who is awakening or is awoken. So you can have your D. Kellys and Kelly D's, and you can have these characters. You can have your... That's all fine and good. And you can bolster your weaknesses that way. There's no doubt. I mean, it's sort of a silly question to ask if you're referencing that. No offense, Stu, by the way, but it's kind of a silly question to make. If you already decided that working with other people would be good for you, then do it. What my point is not to discourage or encourage that. My point is that a mystic, it's a solo practice. Even if you're with a group, it's still about you. A mystic is someone who is waking up or woke up. That's right. Awake, not woke. Exactly, Jose. We don't want to go with the woke. I had somebody comment on one of my videos recently go, oh, what's the problem with being woke? It just means that you're aware of things. Oh boy. I mean, Christian, if we're using the word science in a more classical sense, I guess, but I don't like to call it science is its own dogma now. And there's people who think that science legitimizes things. There's a lot of people in the occult and mystical communities that try to play as if these things are sciences. And they do that because they think it legitimizes it, when in fact it actually undermines it. I should write a treatise on why that is the case. It would be very boring and stale. But fundamentally, they are not compatible. Science is the study of phenomenon and using that as a way to extrapolate an understanding of reality, of the material part of reality. Science is a materialistic operation. It doesn't even work in the astral because causality is required. Causality only manifests in the material frame and only through mundane acts. Period. End of discussion. There is no arguing this. By definition, science is a material operation. You cannot apply even the scientific method to magic. You cannot. Because if you do, it won't work. Magic doesn't work in the way a machine works. You cannot test magic. It's like a rule written into the subject. You cannot test it. The minute you try to test manifestation, it fails every time. It requires leaning into something with a modicum of faith, if you will. You have to trust that it will or will not be what you desire it to be. You have to accept whatever comes. You have to celebrate it like it's already happened. You have to live in that frame as if it's already occurred and you're just waiting to find out. That's not science. You cannot do magic with a scientific mindset. You can't. If you think you can, that means you don't understand what science is. I do, because for 15 years I was a hard materialist skeptic. And I used to take a shit on everybody who's magic is a form of, it's just a long lost sister to science. It has nothing, there's nothing scientific about magic, nothing. They don't play well together. That doesn't mean you can't use science to improve your magic. You can use science to figure out, better candles or something, I guess. You can try to use trial and error and testing and theories. You can do all that, but it's not the same thing. You can have a control group. You're going to do a ritual and have a control group and a test group and a blah, blah, blah. You're going to do a true scientific experiment. Yes, exactly, beyond name. Exactly. It's like trying to measure imagination. How big? Close your eyes and imagine. This is a good example. Close your eyes and imagine the planet Earth. How big is it? Okay, that's too hard because the planet Earth, you don't know the size. Okay, fine. Close your eyes and picture a ruler that says 1 foot on it. How big is it? It's not a foot. It takes up no space at all. You can't measure that ruler in your mind. It just says 1 foot on it. Yes, be great anyway. Metaphysics is the correct word. That's why I like saying I'm a metaphysician, not a scientist. Great example, beyond name. That's so good. That was so great. Mwah. You nailed it. You summarize with one statement what I'm trying to say. You cannot measure the imagination. You cannot measure magic. You can't. So this is why when people say, well, I treat magic as a science and we're going to call it experiments, what we do. Sure. When you can get your experiments to repeat with 100% certainty every time, you won't even need to validate yourself with anyone because the whole universe will beat a path to your door. I know people that they like to say, well, magic is a science and I perform operations that are experiments and I want to... No, you just want to use the cloak of science. You want to wear science as a facade to legitimize what you're doing, to sound intellectual about it. That's all. Because if I challenge you to do the same ritual 10 times in a row and have it work in a way that would prove it, 2 handfuls of... It never happens. And I've challenged people because I already know what's going to happen. Even I know it doesn't work that way for me. I've been a professional practitioner for years, meaning you pay me hundreds of dollars for the hope that what I do will result in something you desire. And it often does. But I can't do the same ritual twice and expect the same outcome. It doesn't work that way. Well, Thorne, then you're just not a good practitioner. Oh, are you sure? Do you guys remember back in 2018 Halloween, I did a ritual to destroy the pedophiles, false accusers? It was a simple little ritual. I gave an offering to Nyarlathotep. Within months, Epstein didn't kill himself. Within months, many of the false accusers of certain people in public profile were getting their shit pushed in. And now the world... Guys, the Shadowgate Project. Those of you who participated in that, I'm surprised more of you aren't in shock like I am as to how well it worked. Like, the whole world's different. The whole world's getting its shit shown to itself. The whole world's shadow is being revealed. Shadowgate worked. So don't tell me my magic doesn't work. The fact that I know it's a one-off thing means it really will work. Because if you understand how magic really works... Okay, so it's time. Let's have a 101 discussion. And then I'm going to go because I'm getting hoarse. Magic 101. Magic is a form of yoga. Magic with a K, M-A-G-I-C-K, is just a form of yoga. It is a way to align yourself with the truth. Magic is transcendental meditation. Magic is realizing you are Ein Sof, or Ein Sof. Magic is realizing you are Brahman. That's what magic does. Magic is not causing change at a distance without causal connection. That's not that. I know that's what Crowley said. Crowley said a lot of shit that was wrong. People act like Crowley's some saint who was right about everything. Fuck you. He got a lot of shit wrong. In fact, I think he knew it. I think there were times he was a bullshit artist. So no, I don't agree with Crowley on a lot. But the point I'm making, though, magic with a K is not what you do to get things you desire. Magic with a K is what you do to wake up. Sorcery, manifestationism, quantum jumping. These are all words that are spellcraft. These are words for getting what you want. Witchcraft, yes, is a better word for getting what you want than magic. So I make a distinction between ceremonial magic that you do to ascend and then ceremonial spellcraft that you do for a result. So magic is about ascension and recognizing your true self. Sorcery is the word I like to use for manifesting my will or desires. That's the difference. On the one, I can do ceremonies, I can do simple spells, I can do manifestation techniques, meditations. That's over here. That's spellcraft, sorcery, witchcraft. Ta-da! So if your goal is witchcraft, yeah, get a team, by the way, Stu. That's what you're talking. If your goal is to manifest your desires, then by all means, if you need a team to help round out the corners, that's fine. But a fully realized mystic doesn't need that. A fully realized mystic, well, they don't do magic anymore. And if they do anything, they do sorcery. And they do it to manifest what they desire or what they will without delay or without obstruction. But ironically, when a mystic achieves maximum transcendence, they realize that that's what's going to happen anyway, whether they do the spell or not. And you reach this point where the whole operation, it flips over, and you find yourself being no longer a practitioner of sorcery either. Because you don't need to. You can trust that your ability to choose a reality is sacrosanct, and you do not need a ritual or a spell to do it. This is why the most advanced stop doing these things. They become teachers of these things. They tell you what to do. Believe me, if I could, I wouldn't even do rituals for people except for fun. People would come to me and I'd tell them what to do. I'd make up a video. I'd make up a ritual for them. Yes, do this, spin around 12 times and blah, 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 blah. And there'd be symbolic reasons for all of it, but I would have chosen them based on who you are, not what some grimoire says. I think Jodorowsky, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's the guy who did like the Holy Mountain. He was going to do a version of Dune. So Jodorowsky, if you ever learn about him, people would come to him, and the magic he would give them was completely freeform. It was like chaos magic. And he would not follow the conventions of magic. The guy knows his tarot. If you want to learn tarot, go to Jodorowsky. The guy practically invented the concept. If you listen to him, he knows it in a way that most people don't. In fact, when we lose him, I think we're going to lose one of the better tarot people, in my opinion. But Jodorowsky, there was an example of this guy. I cannot remember what his problem was, but as a ritual, what he had him do was go stand out in front of a restaurant, staring in the window like a homeless person, with a pocket full, I believe, of glass beads like you'd have in a fish tank, or marbles or something like that. And Jodorowsky told him to go stand in front of the mirror, in front of the big window where everybody was eating, stand there looking like, you were a homeless person, and just continually pull the glass beads out of your pocket and drop them on the ground. And it worked. The thing that he was trying to change worked. Can you tell me what magical tradition he got that idea from? None. There's not a single one on the planet. What does the glass balls even correspond to? Nobody knows. It was personalized for this guy. And it worked. Did you know that when I do a ritual for money, that's usually what I'm doing? Why do you think I need a consult with you before I'm willing to do it? Why do you think I don't just show you pictures of my ritual and say it was done? Why do you think I make a video for you? Because I know that what I'm doing is I'm getting you to detach from the world scenario that you're attached to. I like a needle on a record player. I'm picking you up using my ritual performance as the permission slip for you to change your choice of reality and put you back down. And now that's your new timeline. I didn't change it. You did. By watching the ritual, participating in it that way, you gave yourself permission to change what reality you're seeing. You shifted your direction. You changed your perspective from going one way. Like if you ever learn how to ski or ice skate or rollerblade or something, one of the things they'll tell you is if you're having trouble figuring out how to turn, don't try to turn, just look. Turn your head hard in the direction and your body will just do it. It'll know how. Because where attention goes, energy flows. And when energy's flowing in a direction, so are you. Because that's what you are. Ta-da! So all you have to do, why do you think when your mind is just fixated on negative shit, that's all that happens is negative shit? It's kind of like law of attraction, but law of attraction is wrong. I don't like law of attraction. It's got a few good points. Law of attraction is mostly just bullshit to sell a book. But it's got a few points that are correct. It just misrepresents them. What it really is, it's about where you send your attention and intention. Attention and intention, the same thing. By the way, because you cannot look in a direction without an intention. So, where you direct your intention or where you direct your attention is the same thing. So when you're trying to be a magician and you're trying to transcend, that's a magician. When you're trying to be a magician and you're trying to recognize the true self, you need to look towards that. You need to change your perspective and look towards your goal. The top of the mountain, as is the metaphor. When you're trying to change causality, you're trying to change your timeline experience, you have to look in the direction and you have to let go of the path you're on so that you can jump the track and turn. You can't do that if you're attached. You can't do that if you're not willing to look in places you may not be normally willing to look. You have to be able to let go of your current reality completely and die. In fact, I shouldn't say this because this is one I would never recommend, but I think it's one I might have done. There is a method, and I disavow this, YouTube. I am not at all recommending this. I think it's wrong. Don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. But there are techniques, supposedly, that involve more than just ego death. Self-literal sacrifice and waking up in a new reality. I don't recommend it. I'm not telling you to do that. In fact, I'm literally not telling you to do that. It's just they exist. That it does exist out there. That's hardcore mode. You want to talk about detaching from the timeline you're on to the point where you're trusting that you're going to just wake up in a new one when it's could be. You know which way I recommend? Just go to sleep on it. You don't have to get, because a true mystic knows every night when you die, you go through the death process. Did you know that? When you go to sleep, I don't mean your body dies. I mean, your spirit, your energy body, your higher self goes through the death process. You come out of your body because you're never in your body. Really, you go within further. It's the death process. It's just different. It's just, you still have a little tether attached is the symbolism. So I like to tell people, do a ritual and don't expect it to change for at least a day. Do a ritual, go to bed on it the next day. And it can work. But it doesn't even have to be that. You can enter a state of deep gnosis. You don't have to die. All you have to do is do ego death. That's all you have to do. Why do you think all of the best ritual spells in magic recommend, encourage, or require that you enter a transcendental state, a mind blank state? So all of these traditions worth a damn require you go into a trance at some point during the ritual. And that trance is meant to be like samadhi or gnosis, a state of transcendence where there's no ego involved. Watch my ritual performances. There's a few of them out there on my YouTube. You will see that I begin and end the ritual usually in a very trancy state, or I get into one. And there's usually a point either before, during, or sometimes way after the ritual where I go into a very deep state of mindfulness, egolessness, or transcendental, like samadhi, like as far into that as I can get. Where I leave the material world behind, I transcend it for a little while, and when I come back, in my mind, I know that I've picked up the needle off the record, shifted it, and put it back down. I've jumped the timeline. That's the language I like to use right now because it bridges the gap for people between the material and the immaterial truth. That's the beauty of the multiverse model, is it lets you do that. The hard part for most of you is you think you're this thing you're watching. So when I tell you you're jumping a track, you're going, well, my body's going to travel. No, your body's not going to travel. Consciousness is going to shift perspective to a different manifestation of reality. Well, does that mean I'm leaving my wife and kids behind? Maybe. Depends on how you define wife and kids. If you define wife and kids, I'm using that as a metaphor. It could be anything. It could be your dog, it could be your work, whatever matters to you. It could be the specific soul or Atma. Even though the ultimate Atman is the same for all, there is still at some level a personalized or individuated Atman that hasn't quite transcended its dualistic self yet. So you could argue that souls may stay with you, but you may be shifting timelines and leaving your wife and family behind. Yes, it may happen like that. These are things that when you realize it, that's why magic doesn't work the way you think it should. Guys, do you not understand what I'm saying? In order for magic to work, to manifest anything that you want, you have to be willing to let go of something. Doesn't mean you will let go of it, but you have to be willing to. In order for change to occur, you must let go of things as they are. And in the case of magic, or sorcery, I should say, when you're making a massive jump of the track and timeline, the bigger the jump, the more you're leaving behind. And there may be things you leave behind that you don't want to leave behind. Because from this position in the space-time matrix delusion, it may not be a direct jump from here without doing that. There's always a way, but it might not be a way that you are able to make because of your psyche. Your psyche cannot go back in time very well. I didn't say can't at all. But personal time still is linear, no matter what you do. There's always a sense of past, present, and future because that's an illusion you are creating. But it's easy to change a future path, relatively. But it's got to be something that connects from here directly. It's got to be something that's an option in this reality. It cannot require complete rewriting of the rules or complete rewriting of your current state. Or should I say, for you guys, it can't, because it's very difficult to let go of the current state. If I said to you, you can have whatever your ritual you want it to have as the outcome, but you're not willing to give up everything, then that means there's a limitation to why it's working or not. Don't you get it? That's why magic, sorcery doesn't always work. Because if you're not willing to completely let go of everything that matters to you, there may be a reason that timeline's inaccessible because you're not willing to give up that one thing. So for example, I'm not willing to give up my dog, my wife, my son, you know, shit like that. So if my future timeline from where I am right now requires them going away, it's not going to work. And the fewer of those attachments that you have, the easier it'll be to make it work. This is the rubric. This is how you can make it do what you want. And the irony is, it is those attachments that make you want change in the first place. Did you know that? This is why I just said the most transcendent mystic doesn't need sorcery anymore. Because they don't have the attachments they used to have, and so they don't need to go through the ritual spells and shit. They don't need the training wheels anymore as rigidly. They may still use them. There may still be reason for them, but they don't need them the way that you do, the average practitioner. Because they've already reached a state where they can just go into a trance, shift their perspective, and pick back up again. It becomes a siddhi, a natural power. It doesn't require a ritual. It's just an option. Maybe it makes it more fun. Yeah. EA Quetting says, hi all. What's up, EA Quetting? I was just talking shit about you, brother. Actually, I was, but in a good way. It sucks you just showed up because I'm probably gonna leave in a minute because I've got a rant throat going on. I'm not interested in sex magic, Stu. Not at all. He says, never heard you talk on sex magic much. Because it's a beginner's practice. Did Thorne just act all high? No, it is. If it's what I just said before applies to this too. It's powerful for people who want to use it, who it resonates with. It is not required. I don't mean to sound like I'm talking down on it, but when I hear someone talking that way, you're placing the custom above the truth. You're being superstitious, Stu. No offense. It's obviously very powerful. That's a superstition. Because you're placing the practice above the reality. The real is not a practice. The real is everything. Brahman, infinite consciousness, eternity. That's reality. Those rituals are practices. That's all they are. And a practice is something you stop doing once you figure it out. You don't practice what you've mastered. Now, could I learn something from sex magic? Probably. I'm not saying I couldn't. I'm saying it's not required. It's an avenue. It's a form. It's like, do you have to do saber fencing to be good at longsword? If your interest is longsword? No. These are all ways to wield the same sword or a different kind of sword. You can do, if you're interested in longsword, you have Lichtenauer, you have the Italian Fiore. Yes, Stu, it's a beginner's level practice. Absolutely. Absolutely. All of these are beginner's level shit. The demonic realm. Guys, this is partly what I'm fed up with, is the superstitiousness about all of this. It's the fetishization of myth and folk lore. It is the placing of the machinery of the symbolism above the reality. Like people who think that the Sephiroth refer to real spheres that exist in some, I'm not saying they can't. Like I had somebody recently tell me like the tree of life, the Sephiroth has been destroyed. It doesn't matter anymore. You don't need, well, that means you just don't understand what the Kabbalah is then. or can be. The demonic realm is a symbolic representation of, well, they're really daemonic. There is no such thing as a demon in that sense that most people use. That's a Christianized idea. Daemons are tutelary spirits, tutelary conceptions, ideals, archetypes. They may be self-aware. They may have persona, but they don't have to. A daemon, you can have a personal daemon. You can have a communal daemon, a cultural daemon. Some would argue that gods are a form of daemon. They're like they're a high daemon. But these are just terms. They're just labels, brother. That's all they are. The demonic realm is a label for a frequency of awareness. Don't you get it? There is no demonic realm. There's just a place, a direction that you can look. And we use the label demonic realm. I am not theistic. That doesn't mean I don't believe in spirits or ghosts or ghoulies or gods. It means I am not theistic. If you understand what the definition of the word theism means, I am not that. I don't do that shit. Because I happen to know that 90% of deities, 99% of the deities that we talk about are late-stage cargo cult mythology. They're based on ancient beings that were either coming from this world or other dimensions or whatever, interacting with humans that we mythologized and made as part of our metaphysical traditions. They represent higher archetypes. And those higher archetypes are psychological. And that's because everything is mind. Everything is consciousness. Say it with me. That's the Hermetic tradition. That is non-duality. There is no such thing as a demon. There is consciousness in the form of a demon. There is no such thing as Stu Henny. There is consciousness in the form of Stu Henny. Stu, the Nephilim, ancient aliens, brother. It's all ancient aliens. It absolutely did happen. It just wasn't Christian flappy, flappy angels coming down. They're fallen angels because they pissed off God. That's theism. That's mythology. Trust me. Go spend some time in the Hindu culture. They are way more elevated, way more sophisticated than the Western traditions. I'm sorry, they just are. That doesn't mean the Western traditions don't have anything. They do. You should study them too. What I'm saying is start with the Hindu tradition and then look at the West, and the West will make a ton more sense. In the true Hindu, the more sophisticated Hindu traditions, they understand that there is no such thing as a god. There is Brahman manifesting as a god. That everything is a mask for the one. Every god is a face of the same God, including you. That's how you become a living God, is to recognize that this is an avatar for the divine. This is the temple of Solomon, Sal-Om-Un. Thank you, Beyond the Name, or the Beyond Name. Thank you, brother. That is a giant, giant donation. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very, very humbly. Thank you. So what I'm telling you, Stu, is this. Here's where I'm going to give you the secret. Everything that you're into, you can keep being into. You just have to wake up to the fact that they're symbolic. But Thorne, I had an experience with a demon. I'm not saying you didn't. I know that response because I've dealt with it a billion times. I'm not saying you don't have experiences with things that you feel are that. It's that you haven't yet transcended your delusion of reality enough to know the difference between something that really exists versus something that exists in the context of experience itself. So, for example, there is no such thing as a soda can. But my experience of the soda can does exist. If you don't understand intuitively what I just said, you're still at the beginner level. You're still a neophyte. You don't get it yet. You haven't transcended physical reality enough yet to get it. I've transcended it just enough where I have gotten it enough where I don't need any bibbity bobbity or boo. I don't need a demon or a ghost or a spirit. Fuck you, Azazel. Fuck you, Lucifer. Fuck you, Jehovah. Fuck you all. You're all bullshit. You're all mirror images of my higher self. Period. And fuck him too. If you can't have that attitude, if you're, oh, don't piss off the gods, don't piss off the demons. I did it one time. EA, if he's still here, he probably remembers this. I was drunk as hell with EA one time. I took my beautiful, immaculate skull, granted it was resin, that I made a beautiful, immaculate sigil for Azazel with beautiful scroll work. It was a gorgeous fucking, I've got pictures of it. It's gorgeous. I said, you know what I think of this motherfucker? Bang, right on the ground. Smashed. If you can't do that, you're not a fucking god, you're a pussy. You're not a god. You're nothing. You're a servant. You're a worshipful bitch. If you can't spit in the face of your patron, you're nothing. This is why I don't travel in the theistic circuit. This is why I don't call myself really a demonologer. I'll call myself a demon sorcerer because it's a cool title. That's not what I am, though. This is what I mean. Like, I've been trying to find a way, and I have to realize I just can't anymore. I can't travel this circuit anymore because it's filled with superstition. It's filled with superficiality. It's filled with theistic belief. And I'm not saying you can't do devotional practice. I'm not saying that. But if you're doing devotional practice with the wrong mindset, it's subservience, it's submission, it's putting off enlightenment. If let me go back to that spitting in your if you can't spit in your patron's eye, then you're not free to love them either. Let's go back to what I said before. If you're not free to hate somebody, if the law says you must be, look at what's happening in the UK. You can't say anything negative about the immigrants or else you can be thrown in jail. How does that breed tolerance and acceptance? It doesn't. It's obviously a psyop to break people into a civil war state. It's obvious what they're doing there. They're not actually trying to stop intolerance. They're trying to stoke civil war and violence, period. And by the way, Hardcore Zombie, I love that saying because I've said it too. I don't bow to anybody, but what I will do is I'll bow to myself in another form. With mutual respect. That is the only condition upon which any form of that kind of submissive respect is tolerable. Is if I fully know in the moment that I am bowing to the divine in them. Namaste. I will, namaste. That's fine. Oh, great Holy One who is a... No. Never. This is that left-hand path mentality. This is the real one. This whole spit in your patron's face, the irreverence of it, because you're breaking these attachments to what you think is required. You're transcending the limitations of your material form. You're letting go of all of these little submissive right-hand path traditions that tell you, worship this deity and trust this and do that, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying that, to go back to your sex question about sex magic, I'm not saying it doesn't work, by the way. I'm not saying it's not powerful. I'm saying it's beginner level. It's beginner level because when you get it, you don't need the practice anymore. unless you're trying to learn a specific skill set, in which case that's different. But you don't need it. Exactly, hardcore. You know, you can lovingly spit in the face of your patron too, you know. Maybe your patron needs to be taken down a peg, especially in the demonic underworld. In other words, the infernal version. The infernal versions, part of their deal in many cases is they are not transcended. Many of them are fallen beings because they still think that they're dualistically separate. Others are actually transcended, but they still favor negative energies. Nothing wrong with that. One could argue that the world elite, that are the pedophiles, the adrenochrome sucking motherfuckers, that's their deal, that they are enlightened, that they have transcended. It's just that they don't have compassion in the way that you and I would think of it. They don't have, correction, they may actually have compassion, but they don't have the empathy. You know, you can still be compassionate without empathy. You just become cold about it. It's like, well, and a person with empathy tries to minimize other people's suffering. Someone without empathy might say, I'm going to minimize your suffering by making you hurt. By making you hurt so much that you improve. The understanding is this: if some of the conspiracy theory people that I follow are correct, the cabal, at least one of the major heads of the cabal, is run by a group of people who can be traced back to Sabbatai Levi. It's the year 1666. Look up Robert Sepper's work on the guy who taught a backward way, a left-hand path, a heretical form of Judaism, a heretical form of the Kabbalah, whereby you sin, you redeem the world through sin. You break all the commandments. You literally become evil. You become Ahriman. And everything becomes materialistic, and you make everybody fallen and evil and wicked and self-absorbed. And in so doing, the divine will react positively to correct that imbalance. And in so doing, the Messiah will come. And they believe that they will be set free of their sin because they did it for that noble reason. Oh, divine God, you will give me my liberation. You will not send me to hell because I did this for you. I played the role of Zamiel. I played the left hand of God. I played the hand of death for God so that God could come in. That, as sick as that is to admit for most people, in the absolute sense of the absolute itself, that is no different than someone on the other side saying, I will heal the world by going out and bandaging its wounds and making it better and blah, 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 blah. It's no different. It's just the hand of severity versus the hand of mercy. This is why that group worships Saturn. This is why that esoteric inner cabal of left hand, they worship Saturn. Do you understand now? When I say they worship Saturn, I mean the original meaning of the word worship is to place value upon. So I'm using worship in a different context right now than when I usually mean it. Usually when I say worship, I mean it in the colloquial sense where you're kowtowing. Oh, great and holy one. Oh, you're better than me. Oh, I bow, but please give me power. Give me what I want. You're in a submissive position. But the original meaning of the word worship, which I don't use anymore because people get confused, is to put value upon, to give value to honor, to say, this is great, this is wonderful. But it's more than that. It's to like project something into it. Like empower it through that note. That remember, where attention goes, energy flows. So when you venerate, when you worship, you put value on. Most people don't know that these because we're Christianized in the West, and we think worship means, oh God, forgive me, please, and give me a Mercedes Benz, please, oh God. That's submissive worship. I don't do that, so I don't like the word. So try to understand. There's more than one way to skin a non-dual cat. All right, let's see. Let me read some here. No, Stu, you wouldn't. He says, Stu, humans, the most advanced life in this environment and 80 years living in these meat suits, but never getting answers to questions that make all this make sense. Surely as gods, we would know much more. No. No. Let me ask you something. Do you like to know how a movie ends before you finish watching it? Do you like spoilers, Stu? Do you like playing video games on God mode with no challenge at all whatsoever? Do you like having no needs at all? Because by the logic you just used, you're stuck in ego so hard you don't even see it, brother. You're way down there. You don't even get it. The most high moonlights as the most low because that's a lot more fun. To be the supreme means you know the beginning and ending of, you are the Alpha and Omega, you know the beginning and ending of everything. You know all time, all space, all potential. I have a video I put out years ago called Godhood for Dummies, where I pose to you. See, no offense, you probably have never thought this far through. You've never thought out what you just said because you would not enjoy this. If you knew the ending of every movie, would you watch the movie? You might. I'm not saying it's, but the point is you fall, you descend, you become ignorant, you surrender your divine knowledge so that you can experience the remembering of it. Read your Plato. Plato teaches you that nothing that you learn is something discovered, it's remembered. Did you know that? Read your Plato. Stop with the superficial mumbo jumbo bibbity bobbity boo magic, Stu. I love you, brother, but I'm not judging you. I'm acknowledging. This is something that if you were my student, if I was your mentor, if you were my apprentice, this is what I would be saying to you. Very rigid, very exactly the same tone. Stop with the superficial magic mumbo jumbo. Don't confuse the training wheels for the riding of the bike. Your goal is to ride the bike, not to sit there and play with training wheels all day, unless that is your goal. Some people, that's what their goal is. They just want to enjoy the process. Go for it. But if you're trying to actually self-actualize in the magical traditions and through sorcery, you've got to eventually let go of the tools. You learn to ride, then you take those training wheels off, because the training wheels are about riding, not about the training wheels. Magic and sorcery, as you understand it, the way you're talking about it, you still think it's about training wheels. Those are training wheels. They're beginner's implements. A god would absolutely choose to incarnate as a pitiful little human from time to time so that it could have the mortal experience, so it can learn and remember through that experience. Why do you think the absolute incarnates as all of this? Because if it didn't, it couldn't know itself in that intimate way. It would only know itself from the Ein Sof Brahman level, which is indistinct. It's chaos, it's pure everything and nothing at the same time. It's no thing. That is bliss. It is sheer bliss to experience, but it's hollow in that you miss out on all of these little fun details. It's the aggregate. So that highest threshold is the aggregate of all of these little details all at once. And that feels like complete fulfillment, which is beyond feeling. It transcends all feeling. It is simply pure contentment. The absolute, if you are the most high God, you do not experience joy or pleasure. You experience all joy, all pleasure, all pain, all suffering, all at once. And that feels like nothing you can imagine, because it doesn't feel like anything. It feels like completeness, fulfillment, total peace and bliss. That's God's experience. God's experience, absolute God, is not an experience of ultimate power, waving magic wands, making shit happen. It's about completely transcending this nonsense and just being in perfect bliss, peace. You don't have any wants. You don't have any needs. Okay, so then you're going to say, well, okay, maybe I'm not that level of God. Maybe I'm a lower level God. You've just already admitted that to have fun, you need to let go of that ultimate self. You've already just egoistically admitted that you don't want to be that. I don't want to be that because it's boring to be that. I'm here for a reason. I'm incarnated for a reason. This is why many Eastern paths I flick in the nose too, because they're so attached to the idea of escaping this fucking game. You're here for that reason. Nobody put you here. This is one of my problems with Gnosticism, is that they make it that something grabbed you and yanked you out of heaven and made you a human. You chose to be here. You're God, brother. You're the monad. You're Brahman. You transcend any personal divinity. You chose to be here. This was a choice. You chose to make the demiurge. You chose to emanate all this. It's not beyond your will and choice. You chose to forget so that you could have fun remembering and growing. Good night, Christian. And by the way, Stu, in case, I just want to be clear here. Part of my shtick is to be a bit of a dick, okay? It's not real. I'm being harsh. I'm giving you the pass. I like to lean into that Saturnian side. I can't deny it. It's a fun way to talk. But I want you to know, Stu, I am not disrespecting you. You are asking, you're enabling wonderful dialogue and learning opportunities. Your I wouldn't call them challenges, but your statements that are meant to be not challenges, but questions, but not so much questions. You're picking my brain, right? It's fair. So if I sound incredulous or if I sound in any way negative, that's pretty much an act. That doesn't mean there's no frustration in there sometimes, but that's not on you. That's on me. Like, I'm not judging you. I'm just like, how do I explain this to this guy in a short little video conversation? While he's limited to what, 250 characters, and I can just speak till my asshole plops out, right? So just take any tone that I have with a grain of salt. I mean nothing but, I wouldn't be talking to you this way if I didn't respect you. If I don't respect you, I just go, yeah, sure, whatever you want it to be. Yeah, sure, whatever. I ignore you. I'm indifferent. If I respect you or if I want to help you, I will tell you plainly what I can. Or I'll tell it to you in a tone that you need it to be. Very good, Stu. He says, it seems there are countless methods and techniques to practice black magic or witchcraft. What works for one is slightly different for another. Even the infernals grow, develop, and change over time. There's a lot of truth in that because there is no right or wrong. Ultimately, there is simply solve or coagula. There is simply union or dissolution. There is simply order or chaos for us. At this level of understanding, there is only those two. But there is ultimately the one. That is ultimately what all of this is. So it's going to look like there's an infinite number of paths to the same thing because, guys, the absolute is equivalent in our universe to what we think of as a black hole or a white hole or both. If you know anything about black holes, you know that what makes them a black hole is not that they suck things in. It's that they warp the geometry of the ether or space-time or whatever your word for it is. They warp that such that all paths lead towards one focal point. In other words, when you enter into the event horizon of a black hole, it's not that you can't, it's not that you, the reason you can't escape from a black hole is not because it's sucking you so hard. It's because there is no path that you can go that leads out. Every single, this is where it's like you have to talk geometry and timelines and all kinds of shit. There is no space-time pathway out of that event horizon. Because space-time has been swirled up so tightly in that you can't get out. There's no, all directions. If you go inside the event horizon of a black hole, try to stop, turn around, and go back the way you came, that direction doesn't exist anymore. The only direction that remains is the direction towards the singularity. The same exact thing is going on here. When you incarnate, when you begin the spiral cycle of samsara, it's like being released from a white hole, which is just the white light side of a black hole, and you come out. That's why it's a torus. It makes that circle. You come out and you go back in. This is why the ending and the beginning are the same thing in the metaphysical sense. Hey, what's up, Aradia? Oh, you guys are both here. It sucks because I'm actually only going to be on for like another few minutes, but I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Aw. You guys got to come on again. I would love to have you guys back on sometime. That would be so much fun. You're welcome, Stu. If anything I'm saying is helping you, then hopefully the tone is helping it sink in. That's what I like. You know, I like to challenge people sometimes. And I like to challenge their, let's put it this way. Some teachers will coddle you. Some teachers will, you know, they'll powder your behind. And some teachers will punch you in the nose. Well, I'm not quite that severe. I like to do both. Sometimes I like to punch you in the nose, and sometimes I like to powder your behind. Because you need both. Sometimes I'm learning while I'm saying these things. Sometimes I'm learning, you're asking me questions that I don't necessarily have a thought process for yet. Sometimes I'm giving you answers I don't even know what I'm going to say. Did you know that? People are like, Thorne knows all this shit. No, I don't. I'm just attuned to source. It just flows. That's all. And if it seems right, then that's all that matters. By the way, guys, check out Arcanum's Dark Light. Her name's Aradia, and her husband Jabbar. They're freaking awesome people. Check them out. She's more into like the practical witchcraft stuff, so some of this stuff is different than what I talk about. But they are genuine practitioners, and they're good people. Just genuinely good people. Check them out. For sure, check them out. The Beyond name says every entrance is an exit and every exit is an entrance. And I would argue they're the same. Yep, they're the same thing. Perfection versus perfecting. Yes, perfection is a noun. Perfecting is more like, see, the way I like, the way I know the Beyond name knows a lot is because they know how to speak it. They know what words to use, because those words, when you understand why he says that, or she, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, by the way. Perfection is a state. Perfecting is the real. And why do I say that? Because in your metaphysics, in non-duality or Neoplatonism or any of these, there's always a trinity before you reach non-existence, right? When I say non-existence, I mean no thingness is what I really mean. That trinity, there is the knower, the known, and the knowing. Which one are you? So this will be the last question. This will be the last thing I say tonight. In the metaphysical, mystical sense, which one are you? Are you the knower? Are you the knowing? Or are you the known? Which one are you? Which one are you really? So some of you may know that is a trick question. They're all the same thing. But if you had to, it is the knowing. It is the knowing which is the most real. But technically, you're none of them. Yes, the beyond names the space within which they all exist. What you are transcends all three. That's why it's a trick question. People want to say, I'm the knower. So you're a person? You're a thing? Because what exists is not a thing. Are you the known? Well, no, that's definitely a thing. That's an after effect. That's a reflection of the knower. Are you the knowing? Well, the knowing is not what you are. It's like an activity. But it's not an activity because it's a passive feminine activity. Knowing is like a receptive activity, right? This is why you have the one, then the one, then the two, and the three. The three is where comprehensible reality starts. This is why everything's about trinities for me. Because the most fundamental level of dualistic mentation is the Trinity. That's where reality as we incarnate beings begins, is in threes. But the ultimate reality transcends even one because it's not even a number. You have to understand the ultimate, the absolute, is numberless. This is why that question that many beginner non-dualists ask is a stupid question. It's a moot question. When people say, if we're all the same being, if we're all the same consciousness, why don't I have the experience of everybody else at the same time? Because you're assuming that being the same consciousness means a oneness, like the number one, when that's not what it means. The absolute is numberless. It is both everything and nothing at the same time. It transcends number. It's not one consciousness in the numerical sense. It is a oneness of all consciousness that's indivisible. And you cannot have an intellectual understanding of that concept. You can know it though. You can feel it, you can intuit what it means, but you can't intellectually explain it. How many waters are in an ocean? How many waters are there in an ocean? It's all one water. But Thorne, the ocean has waves and locations, yes, but it's all one water, isn't it? It's all one ocean. Do you understand? It's like that. Now you can say, well, an ocean's made of molecules. Forget that for a minute. Just think of ocean, the concept, is what I'm saying. How many spaces are there? There's only one space, and it's infinite. How many times are there? There's only one time, now. But that now is eternal, meaning it doesn't have a beginning, end, or a middle. It doesn't have a past or a future. What you call past and future are just different parts of the same now moment. Time doesn't move. Time doesn't change. Time is a static potential, which your awareness changes perspective of. And that's the reason you have the illusion of life as you know it. But that is not what you want to dwell in, boys and girls. You can know this intellectually, spiritually, gnostically. You can know this, but you don't want to live there because it's boring. The game is only fun when you let it be a game. Think of it like a video game. If you got to play a video game on its realist level, there wouldn't be a screen. You wouldn't see Link running around with a sword. You know what you'd see? Circuits, electrical circuits. You'd see electricity flowing around, and you'd be trying to interact with that. Can you imagine? I'm borrowing this from a guy named Donald Hoffman, by the way. He's a great scientist and philosopher. Look him up. If you tried to play Legend of Zelda at its most realist level of existence, you'd be playing inside the circuit board of your computer. Could you imagine trying to figure out which circuits to activate to just make him swing his sword once? How many millions of processes you'd have to selectively get right just to have it go and kill the goblin? That's not fun. I mean, I guess it could be, but that's not the world we're interested in. We're interested in Legend of Zelda, not computer world. If you wanted to, you could have that experience. You could. What do you think the Akashic Record is? The Akashic Record is just a reflection of the ultimate potential of all time, space, and existence all at once. It's not a record of the past. It's got the future in it too, because there is no past or future. It's always now. Akash, the Akashic Record, is the ether. Akash is ether. The same thing. The Akashic Record, it transcends time. It's like the source code of reality. And you read that source code, consciousness, your personal, your individuated piece of consciousness, your part of space that you are. There's dualistic language, because you can't do it any other way, is reading a snippet of Akash. And it's following a line of Akash. And there's an infinite number of timelines branching out, and you can go anywhere you want. And where you go is what you experience. It's what you manifest. But that's just another metaphor. Because ultimately, that model is made up. It's not literal. It's made up to help you comprehend the incomprehensible. It can be anything you want. This world can look any way you want. You can manifest anything you want. But you can only do that if you're free to want what your will is manifesting. You have to get them in alignment. So, yoga, magic. In order to do sorcery well, to do witchcraft well, to do any of that well, you can do it without this, but it's really hit or miss and difficult unless you have your transcendental non-dual awakening gnosis thing. When you get gnosis, witchcraft and sorcery gets easier. When I say easier, I mean It stops being about learning how other people do it, and it starts becoming about just doing it. You take the grimoires, you say that's a bunch of really cool symbolism. I want to use that. Or you could just watch a movie and emulate what they see in the movie. It'll work for you that way too. How do you think chaos magic works? That's a good analogy. Hardcore Zombie, the Master Boot Record. Yep, that's a good analogy. It tells you where to look to find the information you want. It's a good way to put it. Yeah. All right, guys, I think I'm going to take off for tonight. I want to thank you all. The Beyond Name, thank you so much again for that big old super chat. I appreciate all you guys. Be nice to one another, be good to one another, but don't necessarily be soft on one another. There's a time to be soft and a time to be severe. Know when to do which. Know when to follow that left hand versus that right hand. Know when to be severe versus merciful. Know when to be the crown and just go straight up the middle. The world that is coming very soon is going to rock your worlds. Most of you guys are not ready for what's about to happen. Even a lot of you guys who listen to me, I know you don't see what I see. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. I mean that as the sage who's been paying attention so that you don't have to. I've been trying to get you guys to know. If you join my Discord and go on the Q-Tards channel, that's where a lot of this is going on. We're trying to untangle it. But I'm telling you right now, I don't know specifically what will happen. I just know generally what's coming. Make sure you're prepared. Have that month of food. Have a month of cash for necessary expenses like bills, just in case, set aside in a safe. Have something that can protect that in your country that depends on you, what you're allowed to have. If you're in America, at least you can use a pew-pew. But even that's not the end-all be-all. This is the ultimate pew-pew. Be smart. Be intuitive. Because what's about to come is going to happen pretty much around the world. I don't know the exact time frame. I don't know the exact events. I just know it's going to be rough. I know it's going to be involving war, cyber attacks, power outages, economic crisis. Pretty much the trifecta of all hell is going to break loose sometime in the next months to a year or so. It might even take longer than that, but I don't think it will, because I think we've reached a point now where if there is a plan at all being carried out by anybody, and it's not entirely malevolent, if there's any benevolence in it at all, it's going to have to wind down soon and reach its conclusion. You can only use the crucible so long. You can only apply heat for so long before you break down the very thing you're trying to build. In other words, you break down the parts themselves. You can only apply so much agitation before you can't put it back together. And the powers that be want to put it back together. Even the bad guys want to put it back together. So there's a limit to even what they're willing to do, or else they would have done it already. So all I'm saying is, if I'm right, honestly, you should want me to be right, because what I see coming on the other side of that is the beginning of the next golden age, and there will be some growing pains, and there's going to be some road bumps and all that kind of good shit. It's not going to be pie in the sky from the beginning and stay that way. There's going to be a lot of strife and problems and things we have to iron out. Nothing's going to be perfect. Don't worship any cults of personality. Yes, I'm a Trump guy, but at the same time, I'm not worshiping anybody. Don't play the politics game. Play the ideals game. Understand that those dumbasses on the other side mean well too. Cyber wars, not attacks. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. We all think we're doing what's best for the world. Even those assholes that, you know what I'm going to say. I think you know what I'm trying to say.